The live stream this evening. We got nobody in here right yet. Well, that's okay. We'll get some people up here in just a few minutes, I'm sure. Until then, I want to talk a little bit about the video that I had posted earlier today because it was talking about the monetary policies that the Federal Reserve has pretty much set forth prior to the pandemic. And this is something that I had talked about quite a bit. Pretty much in the Federal Reserve speech, Monetary Policy for a Low Neutral Interest Rate World, or Monetary Policy Strategies for a Low Neutral Interest Rate World, he basically said inside that speech that they are running inflation entirely too low. In fact, his words in that speech are, let me see how he put this. This downward shift in inflation expectation has a second round effect on real interest rates and the economy and inflation. So inflation expectation has a second round effect on real interest rates, the economy, and inflation. When monetary policy is constrained by the effective lower bound, the downward shift in inflation expectations inflation expectations raises the real interest rates, further diminishing the degree of monetary stimulus. Now, that's something that was pretty interesting. Like, somebody asked me about that. It's just like, what does that mean when you, let me see, how does he put that? Lowering the real interest rates, further diminishing the degree of monetary stimulus. And so let me see if I can kind of get this one. If you raise the inflation expectations, then borrowing money today and spending it will save your purchasing power going into the future. Let me see if I got that right. So buying a house today, well, not today because the interest rates are so high, but back before when the interest rates were lower at 3%, when you have like the idea that you're going to have inflation coming into the future, this higher inflation expectation, but the lower interest rates are actually existing in the economy, then that will encourage people to take out money and spend it early before they lose that purchasing power to inflation, right? So it's better to take out a debt and pay a 3% interest on that debt and spend the money now than to lose it to a purchasing power in the future of 7% or whatever it is. So that's kind of what they mean by if you lower the inflation expectation, you would ruin the, or lower the, what did he say, diminish the degree of monetary stimulus. So if the inflation expectation is much higher when you're injecting that money, then the idea that they're going to use that money to stimulate the economy is much higher. If I explained all that right. Anyway, just kind of wanted to explain that for the individual who had asked me about that. So I hope that does a little bit better job. Okay, so, and then they continue on to say, let's see, further diminishing the degree of monetary stimulus, making the downturn worse and reducing inflation even more. Even in times when policy is not constrained, the expectation of a below target inflation in the future affects current decisions. So if you believe right now that the inflation is low, then your decisions on what you do as far as starting businesses or saving money or investing in money or whatever, that all is affected by that expectations, right? Below target inflation, and further affects current decisions, putting additional downward pressure on inflation. And then he goes on to say, and this is the important part, in other words, monetary policy is always swimming upstream, fighting a current of too low inflation expectations that interferes with achieving the target failure to achieving the target inflation rate. And so he said it way back then in 2018 that was the major problem. It wasn't inflation, it was deflation, and that they had to do something about getting the inflation expectations to be elevated during that time. And then we go to Lael Brainerd's speech, and she says just that. That talking about the inflation expectation and how it has been high. She says, of course, an extended period of high goods and service inflation resulting from a series of demand and supply shocks associated with the pandemic and the war could lead to a rise in inflation expectations, which would make it more difficult to bring inflation down, which is what they want. They want to make it difficult to bring inflation down. And then she says this, that is why it has been important for monetary policy to take a risk management posture to defend the expectations anchor, right? He was saying, John Williams was saying that that achieving a below inflation expectation interferes with the achieving the inflation rate. And now she says that it is absolutely listed here that it is why it's important for monetary policy to take the risk management posture of defending the expectations anchor. They want a higher inflation expectations. They totally got it. They wanted it back in 2018, and Lael Brainerd said it just yesterday that it is totally working for them. So again, like, it has been my opinion that the inflation expectations, or the inflation that we are experiencing today, was no accident. The Federal Reserve had planned this to get this exact, environment for the economy to occur. They're right on line with everything that they were anticipating. And I had a few people tell me that I was absolutely clueless about the Federal Reserve and what they are up to in their monetary policies. This is a strategy that I had said a long time ago, and it is definitely playing out today. So anyway, I think, what did I leave down in the description? I left Cantillon's essay in the description. So anyway, if you want to see that video, just go and check out the one I did earlier. It was an excellent piece, I thought, anyway. Something else somebody had told me, and I see it still quite a bit: money printer go burr, prices go up. What else do you need to know? And this is something that just drives me nuts when I hear people say it, because it is so difficult to try and explain that it's not just the money printer go burr and all prices go up. I ask, well, how come lumber is back down to normal? How come we did not get the inflation that the Federal Reserve was anticipating from quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4? Like, where did all the inflation go for that stuff? Where did it go for lumber? How come it's not there anymore? If money printer go burr and prices go up, what else do you need to know? What happened there? Like, nobody seems to want to explain that to me. They just want to say that I'm dumb and that I don't understand how the Federal Reserve prints money and the prices go up. Now, I was talking to my wife a little bit about it, and I was trying to come up with like a really easy way to understand when the money flows into the system, that it does, unless it enters all hands equally, like the channels in which that the money comes in exactly equally for everybody at the exact same time, then you do not have the inflation of money printer go burr, prices go up. Because what happens is the flow of money that goes into the system, that's where the real problem is, and that's really where the inflation finds itself in particular items first before it starts finding its way into the rest of the economy. What we had experienced during the pandemic was a supply chain shock and then a stimulus package that went out to everybody. Both of those are very temporary things. They're not permanent fixtures within the economy. And that's why the Federal Reserve said back in the day that it was transitory, because those two things are transitory. Stimulus doesn't last forever, right? Unless it's just like being at a party. I mean, are you going to, like, being at the party doesn't last forever. Eventually the party comes to an end, right? And then you have to sober up. That's the stimulus. The stimulus was a party, and now it's time to sober up. It's not the same thing. If you had continuous stimulus coming in every month, we had the UBI, coming in or something like that, then, because the money would be coming in at all channels, then I would understand. I would be like, okay, I totally get the inflation scenario, money printer go burr, prices go up. But that's not what happens, right? The money finds its way in first to people who have access to that money first. Whatever it is that they enjoy in their life is where the money starts flowing to. Once those people start getting that money, then it starts going into the things that they like. And this is how the money starts flowing into the system. And this is Cantillon effect, right? And so the way I kind of described it was with a little story. If you can imagine, like, just an imaginary location way back in the day before cell phones and all the other stuff, right? You found a community of people who had an area of the land that was really good at, it doesn't really matter, growing wheat, right? It could be wheat, it could be cattle, it could be whatever, right? It just happens to be grain, right? This wheat. And everybody there, they grow this wheat for the most part. I mean, there are people there, like, there's carpenters and other people, who are in this particular area, this little village, but for the most part, everybody grows wheat, right? That's what they do. They just grow this staple. They all eat wheat. They have this grain, and then there's a few other things that a few other people do, but for the most part, it's just wheat. Now, other people come to this particular area because it's heavy in wheat, and they buy the wheat there. So there's this abundance of wheat, right? And it goes for a certain price. Like, whatever it happens to be. It's not much. It's just whatever it is, right? What the local community there has, determined the price to be. So one individual there has figured out that he can pack some of the wheat to a city that's a long ways away and get a little bit extra money for it. So the distance that he travels, that adds to the cost of the wheat that he takes to the city. Right? Once he's there, he can get a little bit better price for it. So the time it takes, he makes a little bit of money on that time. Right? The wheat doesn't cost any more. It's just the wheat that he picks up at where he's from. But because he took the traveling to get it to the city, then he gets to increase the price a little bit. Well, while he's there in the city, he finds a guy who has a wagon for rent. And he's thinking, well, maybe if I rent this wagon, I can haul more wheat back. So he goes back to the village. The wheat's still the same price. They grow an abundance of wheat. Doesn't change the price of it any. It's just, the amount of wheat. And as long as they have an abundance of it, it's not going to cost any more whether you buy, 1 pound of it or 20 pounds of it. It's just the price that it happens to be there. It's the transportation of it going to the city that is adding to the price of it. So guy gets a wagon, takes this wheat back to the city and sells a bunch of the wheat for a little bit higher price. And then takes that money back to the village with him. Now he has this extra money, right, that he has earned from traveling with this wheat, right? Being able to rent the wagon, pay for the rental, get a little bit of money, extra money for his traveling expenses. And then he makes this money and he takes it back to the village with him. Well, now he has more money than what the typical people would have because he figured out how to make some money off of the transportation of this wheat going to the city. And as he does this more and more, he gets more money than just about anybody else there because he's taking a bulk of wheat and making tons of money with this stuff. Well, he comes back to his village and he's thinking, I'm going to spend some of this money. What do I like? I like hanging out at the bar, right? So he's down there at the bar drinking it up with the bartender and spending all his money with the bartenders, buying other patrons, and other people drinks or whatever. And he's spending his money down there because that's what he likes. Well, then the bartender and the bar owner, he's starting to make a little bit more money now because of this money flowing in. Now, these two guys, they're doing pretty good, but they're not like, spending their money on higher prices. They want to spend their money on the same goods and services. Like, they don't want to spend any more on it. They just want to buy more of it. They don't want to spend more on it. So as they're enjoying everything and the luxuries and stuff that are around there because of this new money coming in, both the transporter of the grain and the bartender or the bar owner, they're enjoying all this new money coming in because this is how it's getting spent. That bar owner is looking over and is just like, I like to eat meat, like I like steaks. I'm going to eat steaks every day with my new money. And so the butcher, he's kind of in the same position as these guys are too, because of the wants and the things that they like, what the property owners are enjoying, right? Now you think about it, the wheat farmers out there, they're not really getting anything for it, right? I mean, there's all this commerce going on. These guys are making all this money, it's flowing in and they're enjoying what they enjoy. But us working guys down here, we're not getting anything for it, we're just sitting here just working our ass. Maybe if we work harder we can get more, right? Well, a little bit of time goes on and you see, like, not only is the grain farmer making a bunch of money and the bartender's making a bunch of money and then the butcher's making a bunch of money, and then they're all starting to wear this style too. They all got this fancy hat on that they're wearing, and so the hat maker over there, he's making a bunch of money too. There's working guys down there at the farming all this grain, getting a little irritated watching all these guys kind of elevate themselves up away from them. It's like all of a sudden there's this separation between the working class and the people who have all this new money coming in, and then maybe all this money that I've, as a grain farmer, I've been working real hard and saving my money. Maybe I deserve to have one of those hats too. Maybe if I wore one of those hats and looked like one of these guys, maybe then I would be like, awesome like they are too. And then I'll just dump my entire family savings into buying a really cool hat so I look cool when I'm cruising around, This is the type of thing that begins to happen, right? So you see how my story is leading into the flow of money? The flow of money, when it comes in, unless it enters all hands equally, enters all channels equally, it's going to go to the people who have access to it first, and then they spend it on the things that they enjoy, right? Those pleasures, those wants that they enjoy. And as that money goes into them, or into those wants and those things that they enjoy, those people have access to the money. They're getting first hands of it, and it's everybody at the end of the line who is starting to suffer with it. So this is the reason why money printer go burr prices don't necessarily just go up. Now, what else happens is that eventually you get to a point where the grain that is leaving is no longer an abundance of grain, right? And now the grain starts to cost more because the inhabitants right? Need to spend a little bit more on the grain because there's simply not enough, since the abundance of it is now leaving the area because of the higher price of it. You see what's happening here? So this is how the foreign imports start to come in. If the grain doesn't produce enough to continually bring the money in, then they have to, or if they cannot produce enough grain to keep the money coming in, they have to figure out a way to get the money to come in, or else everybody will fall into poverty, right? But say, for example, they figured it out. Like, all of a sudden while they're doing this grain, they figured out another way to get some money in, right? There's like a mine or a fishing thing that starts picking up, and they start bringing some money in from this other form. Well, what ends up happening is that if the grain isn't doing it and the grain ends up depleting, well, the grain ends up costing more because you have to bring it in from a foreign location. You see what's happened there? So even though that you might produce the grain there, you may not produce enough of it. And if you don't produce enough of it, then you have to find it from another location. Whatever the distance traveled and the price of it in that location is going to be what the added cost is going to the village that can no longer grow enough for their own abundance. Did I say it all that right? Anyway, boy, am I babbling today. Okay, thank you, Matthew, so much for that $10 super chat. That is very cool of you. Rent stimulus wasn't forever. We helped 17 people get that program because we couldn't evict. When that rent ran out, even with being in the program 18 months, they couldn't pay the first month they owed. So isn't that incredible? See, this is what happens when you enable people, and there's no way that you can set up a system in which that you can temporarily help somebody. They don't take the temporary help as temporary. They take the temporary help as this is our condition of life until it runs out. And then we got to figure out what to do. So the temporary help is never really temporary. It's like a permanent thing until it runs out. Okay, let's go back up here to the top. All right, bonjour. Hey, what's happening, all-nighters? Sup, UE 26 Gunter? All right, good evening, UE, future spokesman. I'm not in and out, it's loud. I'm at in and out, it's loud. Right on. Hey, all-nighter. Hey, Matt. What's up, UE, David? All right, massive layoffs in the tech firms. Yeah, isn't that crazy? And I've noticed it like all the way into, like, not to, like it's terribly concerning or something like that, but like Google has really kind of messed even with the algorithm here on my channel. Like I notice, like, because I can see how many viewers are subs and how many are new viewers, and I can see the new viewers have dropped off dramatically, so the algorithm isn't like exactly spreading my videos around. So anyway, I'm assuming that it probably has something to do with like some major shifts at Google and the AdSense and everything that's going on. All right, all-nighter. Have you ever watched the Wall Street from Main Street YouTube channel? I love that channel. That is a really good one. All right, a lot of food is available. Yeah, we can tighten and inflate at the same time. I can buy monthly treasury bills that expire right before the credit card bill is due. Yeah, that's a good way to play it, I guess. Good strategy. Every video, Jason is good, dude. Yeah, Jason, you're talking about Wall Street for Main Street. He is good. And be the one collecting interest and spending money ahead of time. What a great way to end a week. Hey, what's happening? If you guys haven't been over to Lumberjack Landlord's YouTube channel, definitely check him out. Very good, knowledgeable information when it comes to the rental market. I am going to put this 3x3 animal style right through my face. All right. So many sketchy stuff going on right now, guys. This is starting to seem surgical now. Workforce retaining. It's a major point of the infrastructure bill. The tech companies were ahead of the curve. Now they've gotten their product build-outs and now focused on stability and adverts. Silver without the business to support build-outs. Calling 3 on the die. What's up, everyone? Hey, Steven. Davos is escorts. Simon Bolivar. All right, American dollar in danger. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, A lot of people say that, and what I see out there is a lot of demand for the dollar. Now, will it last forever? Absolutely not. And I'm not trying to say that, the dollar is going to be so perfect and awesome for everybody. But as far as the dollar, like total dollar destruction, dollar go bye-bye, I don't think so. I think the dollar is going to I think we're going to see a dollar strengthening unlike anybody had ever seen at some point. I mean, that's going to coincide with a sovereign and corporate debt default, so it's probably not going to be that great of a time anyway, but I think the dollar will still have its day. All right. People will sign up for centralized banking voluntarily because the new Fed instant clearing system will be able to make your treasuries pay your credit card bill instantly. Yeah, yeah, I mean, I can see something like that. I didn't even think of something like that, but yeah, you're right. I mean, if it's all within the Fed like that. And you have to account with the Treasury, and you have the account with the Treasury instead of the Fed, so technically legal. Yeah, that's the way it would have to be. You really wouldn't. I mean, at least the way it's structured right now, you can't have like the Federal Reserve injecting money directly into the system. It has to route through a secondary market. It has to go through like when they buy treasuries, they buy them from the primary dealers who have already purchased those treasuries from, just purchase that debt from the Treasury. So it's not like the Federal Reserve is going directly to the Treasury and monetizing the debt. Even though when you have like the big banks knowing that the Federal Reserve was going to be buying up the Treasuries, it's like you might as well be, I mean, it might as well be just monetizing the debt, but technically, I guess it wasn't. All right. Exactly. No liability. Freeware in a sense. Biometrics are a beautiful thing. All-nighter. Thanks, LGL. Okay, now all those people are draining tax dollars in the court system. Good evening from Ontario. Well, good evening, Jonathan. The working man is a sucker, just like they said in the Bronx Tale. Weak guy gets rolled in the bar alley. Yeah, no kidding, right? And I mean, that's like, you can see how quickly and easily people will be irritated. It was just like, how come this guy gets it? I mean, we're the ones working so damn hard. All he does is just drive a wagon to the city and he makes tons of money. How come? Because he figured it out, right? I mean, he was an entrepreneur who, like, learned the system. And that's really what it comes down to. I mean, if you can see the money, like, it almost reminds me of like my buddy who was traveling down to go pick up hay. Like, he found a place down the coast a ways that had it for really cheap. So he just loaded up his car trailer and brought it back up here and was selling hay for super cheap. It's the same thing, right? He just figured it out. He figured out a place that is cheaper and took it to a place where it's expensive and made the difference, right? And that's how you do it. Depends on what that man's working on and for how long. Yeah. Great hider. Yeah, for sure. Only Jim Cramer can save us now. Yeah, right. It's interesting. All are talking about tech layoffs. Yeah, I know. I guess that's the big deal right now. I mean, I guess when you blast it all over the news and you put it in every headline and that's what everybody seems to be talking about, then it becomes a big deal. It's just like, I mean, I heard somebody else actually mention it at the store today. We were talking about just jobs or whatever, and then somebody had mentioned that. It was just like, I heard Google laid off 12,000 people, and it was just like, you saw it in the news because they presented it, but it's not like, people are actually researching out whether or not Google is laying off people. They have to present that news out there for everybody to know. I mean, I guess there's some people who would go and research it. All right, Dumb Money Media. Thank you very much for the $5. Yo Mang. I made a silver Reddit. If any of you are curious, Silver Deegan Club. Pretty much non-censorship of any kind. Okay. I'm in tech. 9 million people in tech companies. All these layoffs are less than 100,000 numbers. Feel big, but they really are relatively small. Yeah, and that's kind of what I thought too. It's just like, I can't imagine, like, some of these numbers that you hear, 10,000 people get laid off from this corporation or whatever, and then the corporation has, 9 million people or whatever working for it. And it's just like, that is not that many people. I mean, it's a big number to think, like, there's 10,000 people who live in my entire town. So I can imagine, like, every single person getting laid off. That's a lot of people. But when you think about it, like, out of the entire state, I guess that wouldn't be, that many people. All right. Already by a measure of 3 means to be free. All right. Jealous of your sunlight out here in southeast Texas. Yeah, we got sun for probably another, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. All right. All nighter hider. Love you guys. If you get bored, jump in that. All right. All right. Work at a bank and we had layoffs this week. Pretty sure more rounds to come. I think the Fed announces 50 points in the next hike and the dollar makes its move up. Yeah, and that's really what I feel is going to happen. I mean, from the things that I read in the Federal Reserve speeches and, just from, I don't know, just some of like what I feel is probably more of their hidden statements that they make. Like there's some that are very blatant that they want people to hear, and then they have some that are just very like subtle in what they are trying to say with it. I honestly think that they're going to keep those interest rates elevated for a significant amount of time. I mean, even Lael Brainerd in that last speech was talking about the lag period, and that how the effects of the lag from the tightening have a while before they impact the economy. But what she said in the speech, and I'm not exactly sure where it is in there, I could probably cruise around and find it, but what she was talking about was the lag from the stimulus still being part of the monetary policy. Like, you got to think 6 months to a year ago is right when they first started. Well, a year ago is when they first started to lift interest rates. And now you think like really the lag, I mean, I use 6 months to a year because that's where I think like most people would probably actually start to see the effects of the Fed funds rate, or the adjustment of the Fed funds rate. But really, even most of the Fed officials talk about it being out to 18 months. So really, if we talked about the lag period going all the way back to 18 months, you have to think that we're still feeling some of the effects of a stimulating economy. Like, even though all the layoffs, all the craziness, all the stuff that we have going on, that lag period of 18 months, 6 months, a year, whatever it is, may still have some accommodative measures taking place inside of the economy right now. A year ago is when they were at zero, just starting to lift the interest rates. So that was still accommodating until they got to the neutral rate, which was somewhere around 2%, right? So the 2% mark on the Fed funds rate, 6 months to a year later, that's when it's going to start impacting the economy. We are just now starting to feel the effects of the 6 month later on the 2% rise. You guys get what I'm saying? It was just like this lag period. You have to look back 6 months, a year, almost 18 months in order to see where the economy is today with those interest rates and where they were and how they impact the economy. That lag period, a lot of people don't take that into consideration. They look at the Fed funds rate and say, hey, it's at 4%, that 4% or 5%, whatever it happens to be, right? They look at it at the time and say that is what's impacting the economy. That is an incorrect statement. That is not the way to look at it. You can look at the 4% and say that's what's impacting the markets. That's a much different story. Right? Because that is true. Though that number and the statements and everything else, that has an immediate impact on the markets. But the real economy, the decisions that we make, the money that we save, the businesses that we start, the things that we do, that is lagged out for 6 months, a year, 18 months. And that's really where I think a lot of people are misunderstanding where it is that the economy is right now comparatively to what the Fed has done because of that lag period. Right now, we are just still like, I mean, you think about it, 6 months to a year ago, we're really still in a fairly accommodating economy, just now hitting neutral. I mean, this is a neutral economy right now that we are experiencing. So think about how terrible it is. Once we start going into restrictive economy, it's going to get bad. All right. Thanks for not falling for the Fed are fools theory. The Fed is the banking system, representative bankers. They are not stupid. I've been trying to say that. I have been trying to say that there is no way that 150 economists at the Federal Reserve and all their insight and all their analytics and everything that they have could be dumber than some dude on YouTube. Like, I can't see that. Like, I can't imagine that somebody on YouTube is smarter than the 150 people at the Federal Reserve. Now, granted, their information, their different things that they put out there seems very confusing. A lot of people who have taken their past, like the past actions that the Federal Reserve has done to try and predict what the Fed is going to do going into the future, a lot of people don't take into consideration that the Fed has tools that they won't even explain to us yet until they're ready to deploy them, like the special purpose vehicles. I mean, all this stuff is out there. So to me, I look at what the Federal Reserve is doing and I try to say, okay, you guys are being secretive in a way, somehow, right? Because it's not so simple as money printer go burr, prices go up, right? When I hear about how the Federal Reserve was in a panic to try and deal with deflation, and now crickets about deflation, not a single word of it, none, right? I mean, I think about that statement, how they have to protect, how they have to, what did she say? That's why it's important for monetary policy to take a risk management posture to defend the expectations anchor. It's because they needed to be elevated in order for their monetary policies to work. I mean, you couldn't tell the people, hey, listen, this is what we need to do. We need to really inflict some pain upon you guys, and you're all going to have to deal with it in a very calm and rational manner, right? This is what we have to do to you. And so as the inflation starts to impact, don't panic or anything about the monetary policies, but we have to do this to you. It wouldn't have worked. But if you can blame it on the pandemic, on a sickness that eventually will go away and you don't have to talk about it anymore, well, then you have a great excuse that you can use. It's like the boogeyman. I'm not saying that the pandemic wasn't real. I'm not saying that COVID isn't real. I got COVID. I got sick. I lost my sense of smell and taste. It was not fun. Like, I'm not saying it wasn't real. What I am saying is that the efforts that came out of the not only the central banks around the world, but the central bank here in the United States, in conjunction with the government and their treasuries and the setting up of the special purpose vehicle, that stuff was planned a long time ago. It had to have been. There is no way in the world that they popped off with that plan like immediately. It was something that they had in the works. And I'm not saying like they had planned a pandemic or something like that. It could have been a war. It could have been natural disaster or something else. It could have been all kinds of other things. It just happened to be the pandemic, right? They took COVID off, but poof. Okay, what do we got? Special purpose vehicles. Cool. Let's use them, right? That's how that went down. I mean, it's so frustrating for me because like so many people just want to say money printer go burr, prices go up, and they don't want to do any kind of real work to figure it out, you know? All right, once everyone realizes only consumers are paying interest, everything should change quickly. No, nobody will realize that. People will continue to take out debt and buy things that they can't afford. All right, let's see here. The economy is in a big cycle. We all know this. However, being well prepared, and getting your ass out of debt should be the first priority to what comes next, because it's going to be painful. Yeah, and I totally agree. Being out of debt is by far the best way that you can prepare for what's coming, because it's going to get very difficult in the way of like trying to just maintain your standard of living. I mean, we've already talked about this in other videos that the higher standard of living has a lower population growth. They have already talked about how we need higher population growth. I mean, Elon Musk was talking about how he wanted to try and create humans in an artificial like pregnancy system. I mean, I don't even know how that's supposed to like produce decent humans. But anyway, this is some of the things that they're talking about because of the lack of population growth here in the United States. And we already know that a higher standard of living, trying to maintain that, is not conducive to having kids. But if you're poor as hell and content at being poor, you'll have kids. So that's how you grow populations, is you got to make people poor, I guess. It's really weird to think. All right, 12,000 people at Google is like their cafeteria staff, right? That's what I was trying to get at too. It's not, I mean, it's a big number when you think about it, because like I said, it's like the size of my town, but it's really not that big on the grand scheme of things. Sometimes I skip watching the videos you post, but I always tune into the live streams, UE. Well, thank you, Larry Bird. I appreciate that, man. I mean, it's can't catch every video. I put out one every single day, but I appreciate those who do, because there's a lot of people who catch every single one of my videos, and I cannot thank you guys enough. All right, agree. I could see the American banks setting refinancing terms like they have in Canada. Mortgage system, 3 to 5 years is common, and that's really, I agree with you, Corso. Um, you look around, like they say, okay, well, prices can't be sustained here in the United States. They're too high. They're going to come crashing down because nobody can afford the payments anymore. But then you look at Canada and you're like, well, I can see where prices can go very high, and they can create a situation in which that people will buy those houses on those incredibly elevated prices. So to think that, it can't happen here in the United States, I just talked to Mike Martins and have him explain the housing market up in Canada to us, because what happened up there is nuts in pricing compared to what's happening here in the United States. And if it starts going the way of Canada, we can see the prices go incredibly high here in the United States. I don't think that's going to happen yet, but it could, is all I guess I'm getting at. Yeah. All right, a man that rent in Colorado is dropping. Is it now? All right. That's why I said no more raising. When the monetary system resets, it's always included in a hidden tax, a drastic one near 80%. Milton Friedman says it takes 12 months to 18 months for new money to work itself out into the economy. And that's exactly right. That's why I was saying that, it's like the money printer go burr and the prices shot up right away. It's because of the supply chain breakdown that was taking place. We can see it easily happening in lumber. Like, I pointed it out in lumber and said, this is going to take place throughout the rest of the economy. It may not look exactly the same as lumber, but it's going to have a very similar story to it. Now, what I was not anticipating was when the Federal Reserve saw that the supply chain was broken down through the distribution network, that they were going to try, and I wouldn't necessarily say it was the Federal Reserve was doing this, all right, but I try not to get political, so I think it's the Federal Reserve's plan to keep these conditions the way it is. But the distribution network has been maintained broken. Like, they want it to be broken. They do not want to fix it. And when they ask for help from the supply side, you're not going to get help from the supply side if you tell the suppliers that we're going to damage your customer, right? If we're going to hurt the consumer, why would the supply show up? So the Fed knew all this ahead of time. I made that call a long time ago, saying that this was not going to work, and now it's not working, and people wonder why, All right. That's why it'll probably be 2024 before the real crash. Too many people expect it this year. Yeah, all right. Will buy an asset, manipulate it, and use it as a backing like Bitcoin or silver. They must be talking there. Let's cruise down here. I think I got another super chats. There we go. Brandon Ayers, $4.99. Thank you so much. The speed of the rate hikes is fastest in recent history. The real impact of rate hikes have not been realized. Higher unemployment to come. That's exactly right. They did it so fast, so furiously on purpose, so that they could get those interest rates up to the 5% before it had a real chance to impact the economy. Remember when they were doing autopilot? They were lifting it a quarter point every quarter, right? And just, regardless, they weren't going to make any statements or anything about it. It was just going to go up a quarter every quarter. They got it up to like 2.5%, and the markets hated this news. I mean, absolutely hated it. And the Federal Reserve had to pretty much reverse course. And it wasn't like, this was in 2019. You think about it. They were dropping interest rates prior to the pandemic. When the pandemic kicked in, they dropped them to zero, but they were already on their way down. Go take a look at the Fed funds rate. I mean, the Fed already knew that there was issues with the economy before the pandemic kicked in. And then it was all blamed. Then when the pandemic, it was like the perfect excuse. Like, sever the supply chain, tell everybody to go home, don't go to work, don't manufacture, here's a bunch of money, don't pay your rent, You know, go buy a bunch of stuff from Amazon, clear out the inventory. Oh, we have inflation. I wonder where it came from, you know? I mean, it was obvious. And real inflation doesn't start coming in, wouldn't start coming in until, you know, a year later, which it did. I mean, it started to show up, but it was, everybody was blaming it on the money printer, and it was on the severing of the supply chain. All right, composite operator. Thank you so much for the 11 pen. What's that from? I don't know where that's from. I'm sorry. You should read the book, The Next Million Years, How to Kill Off Excess Population. Ooh, that doesn't. 1953 by Charles G. Darwin. The real reason for the pandemic, a forced vaccination becoming clear. Yeah, we're going to find out. I mean, there's plenty of people out there who chose not to get vaccinated. So, you know, we'll see. I hope you are right. Silver 2025, in my opinion. All right. Let's see here. I thought something big would have broken by now from rate hikes. Shows how complacent and incompetent the last two or three Fed govs. All right. That was a good episode. All right. Wage and prices controls were outlawed in 1973. I believe the investors and the people with unused homes would be the first to run in a real estate downturn. I believe the investors and people with unused homes would be the first to run in a real estate downturn. Yeah. How far down would it have to go? How long do you think those people have owned those homes? Like, if you owned a home for the last 15 years and it ran up to, you know, $1 million and it drops 25%, is that really that concerning to you? I mean, what if it even dropped 30%? I mean, most people who own homes that are empty are probably fairly wealthy people who aren't that concerned about the, you know, the asset price of it itself. Now, speculators maybe, and or people who are, I mean, I guess had purchased it as an investment property thinking that they were going to flip it or something like that. These are the type of people who I would be a little bit more concerned about. But somebody who is sitting, you know, on an empty house that's a vacation rental is still their vacation rental, right? I mean, I don't know. I guess it could. I don't think people would just necessarily having an empty house would do it. I think there would have to be more of a reasoning for it than just being an empty house. At least in my opinion for it. It would have to be more of like they no longer wanted the asset because the asset was costing them money, or that they couldn't rent it out and make back on the asset. You know, that would be kind of one of the reasons for it. But there's going to be a lot of reasons why people are selling. You can already see it kicking up. There's a little bit, you know, there's more inventory for sale. But when it comes to like this market crash, like I don't know where that would be coming from. Like I would see it if it was like, you know, like the toxic assets failing, or if there was like some sort of like the sovereign corporate debt crisis taking place out there, or something that was causing people to lose their jobs in a significant manner where they were just no longer able to make the payments. Something like that would start causing inventory levels to rise or foreclosures to pick up. You know, these aren't the things that we're seeing at this point. I mean, you know, there was a time when I would have said there was a wave of foreclosures coming after everybody came off of forbearance, but I wasn't thinking when everybody went into forbearance that the price of homes were going to go up so much that the time that they had to come out of forbearance, they could just sell the house or refinance it or do whatever they needed to do. But the fact is that they don't need to go into foreclosure because they weren't underwater on it, you know? So we're going to see a housing market correction. I mean, I want to see a crash. Like, I would love to see the crash. Hey, let it crash. I'll buy a house or something like that. Buy a rental property. I mean, it's not like I want to see it. It's just that, you know, I want to know where it's coming from, and I can't find it. I mean, I want to be prepared for that particular moment. And Larry Bird, when will the central bank digital currencies be used to save us all? Thanks for everything you teach us. Well, thank you very much, Larry Bird. I appreciate the $4.99. It's going to be difficult to know when it's going to actually happen. I mean, the central bank digital currencies, in my opinion, are going to be introduced during a time of crisis. Like, there is going to be some sort of issue taking place out there that the people are going to be in a panic, and they are going to be telling the politicians out there, you need to do something about this or else, right? Or else what? I don't know what it would be, but because there is no real threat coming from the people, but they keep, screaming at their politicians saying, hey, you need to do something about this. What they're going to come up with is, here you go. Take this thing, and we'll load it up with a bunch of money, and now you can go eat. And the people will say thank you. Like, they will literally say thank you for setting this up and saving us and taking all the cash out of the system, because now we can eat and we're all awesome, right? This is how the people are going to feel about it, and then not realizing that they have done locked themselves into a permanent cashless society where they will be forever in debt and never be able to get out of it. That's unfortunate. I want chickens. I'm going to get me some chickens here in a couple of months. I think no matter who U.S. president, they have a tall task running the rest of the government within America. I think they are lame. I think that they do not do anything that is beneficial to us at all. I think that our government is corrupted beyond belief, and whoever it is that you are voting for is selected so long as it's on that menu. That's it. Like, I have no faith in our government whatsoever. None. Like, I do not believe that they have the people's best interest in mind. I don't believe that they have a idea of staying within the confines of the Constitution. I don't believe that they are anywhere near something that is something I want in my life. Like, I hate government, Hey Simon, sent you XRP Fed links. Haven't had time to watch videos. Not sure if you mentioned. What did you think? Stronger links for the Fed. God bless. Okay, well, thank you very much for the links. I did get a few people who did send me some links. Now, here's the thing. I went through the links that was sent to me, and it is true, there are a couple of mentions of the word Ripple in some links that were on the Fed website. Now, two of them that I saw mentioned Ripple, specifically, were letters of suggestion going to the Federal Reserve. That wasn't the Federal Reserve statements. It was somebody from outside of the Federal Reserve working for Ripple or part of Ripple or whatever who had sent a recommendation and an idea to the Federal Reserve that got posted. It wasn't the Federal Reserve saying it, but it is some information that was on the Federal Reserve site that did use the word Ripple within it, or an XRP. That's what I noticed, at least in two of the links. And then the other one, although it mentioned a lot of the features of XRP, I couldn't find exactly where it was that Ripple was mentioned in the statement itself. So out of everything that I read there, I still didn't quite get the confirmation, although it is what I asked, that I wanted to see the word Ripple on the Federal Reserve website. I found that, but it was a letter to the Federal Reserve that they posted. It wasn't the Fed, and at least that's the information that I saw within it. Maybe I missed something in the links, but that's what I saw out of it. But I really appreciate it. I mean, that's what I am looking for, is that kind of information. It's not confirming to me yet. So many options not to go into foreclosures on a home. Yeah. True. I was feeding them when they didn't lay eggs for 6 weeks during molting season. Yeah, you can light them up. You can put a light bulb on them. A lot of people think that you put a light on the chickens to keep them warm. I don't know where people got that idea. I guess it's maybe from when they were little chicks, like, because you put a heat lamp on the little chicks to keep them warm. But chickens don't need a light to stay warm. What they do have is a gland in their eye, right? That when it's stimulated with light, it triggers them to start laying. So that they're laying not in the wintertime, but during the springs and summertime when it's more conducive to have little chicks. But if you light that gland up, if you put a light in their coop or something and they have 24-hour light, that gland stays stimulated and they'll lay all year round. Now, when I had my birds, I wouldn't do that because it's kind of hard on the birds, but you'll get egg production continuously, which is really what you want, because you'll end up for, weeks at a time or even months where you get no egg production, but yet you have to continue to feed these birds. So, yeah, that's the difference. All right. Okay. Unless your chickens were actually moldy. The dollar is here to stay. Taxation is what stir people up. World War III? I don't think so. Not in the sense of not like what's going on in Ukraine kind of thing. I think the World War is going to be a much more technically fought war. More cyber kind of warfare stuff. All right, see you later, Steven. He says he was out. Of course, that was probably a while ago in the comments. Let's see here. I do not want to digital. No, I don't think anybody really wants to go digital, but I don't think you're going to have much choice. So you can either fight it, ignore it, say, I'm not going to deal with this, it's not going to be part of my life or anything, and just, pretend that it isn't there. Well, the rest of the world is going to be picking up on it and using it. So eventually you're going to get forced into it. In my opinion, it's best to embrace this stuff, right? It's best to embrace it, understand it, know what it is, and then protect yourself as best you can. Because if you embrace it and understand what it is, then you can say, hey, I know what I can do to try and work around these things. But if you never know what it is, like you're like, I ain't going to look at that thing. Well, eventually it gets to you, and then you don't know how to protect yourself from it. So that's my opinion. Like, you can fight it, or you can just accept it and then control that, that part of things. That's the way I see about it. Like, there's no way that we are going to organize the people enough to fight the central bank digital currency off. I just don't see that happening. It would be fun to try. I mean, I'm on board. If you guys can come up with it, I'm on board. I'll fight it with you, but it's not going to happen. So I don't know why you would want to do that. It's more of like, try to figure out what it is and then work against it. All right. The CPI was changed in 2023. Did anybody see the deal? Yeah, I saw where they actually, I don't know. To me, I have a hard time following consumer price indexes and all the other stuff because I already know that it's faked, right? I mean, they're fake numbers, not like everybody knows they're fake. No, they straight up told us, FASB 56, FASAB 56, legal lies. They straight up said, we are not going to be giving you the real numbers from here on. These are all fraudulent, and they do it on purpose for national security reasons. Now, they have already said that you can use these numbers for investments, retirement pack, whatever. All that is still legitimate enough to use it. But when you straight up say it, we are lying about this, I can't use it anymore. I mean, it's just I can watch the direction it's going, like if it's going up or down, but what the actual number is, or comparatively to what it used to be or something, that doesn't mean anything to me anymore, because they already said that they are lying about it. It's not an accurate number. And I don't know. It's like I can't convince myself to accept it anymore, knowing that it's a legal lie. It's just it. All right, 40 years old. I have never, nor will I ever vote. Well, I mean, I'm kind of with you here. Voting in Oregon sucks. We have mail-in votes. It's you write it out, put it in an envelope, send it in the mail. And the problem with that is that our votes get counted so far out past everybody else that our little 3 electoral votes don't really mean anything. So since I started voting, Oregon has always entered their votes in last, and it's 3. The president had already been elected by the time Oregon gives their votes out there to say, hey, this is who we're voting for. Here's our 3 electoral votes for, most of the time, a liberal president. But, it's obvious that we don't matter. You could take our votes and it could go either way, and it would not make any difference in the decision for president, considering that they have already accepted the presidency by the time we are even giving our votes to the count. So it's just I don't even know why I vote. There's no point in it. By the time they count my vote, the president has already been elected, All right, just a box of rain, not a ripple. Weren't you bragging not too long ago how you were getting such high prices for all your rentals? I guess not talking to me. I ain't got none. All right. In my opinion, they are working with them on the low. That's why you don't see it broadcasting, but we shall see. Either way, appreciate it, man. Thanks for all you do. Yeah, let's go down here to the bottom. Okay. Do you think the U.S. has learned its lesson on bringing home manufacturing jobs after the pandemic? Do you think the U.S. has learned its lesson on bringing home manufacturing jobs after the pandemic? Learned a lesson? The United States can't do anything about that. It's the Cantillon effect. There's no way that the United States is ever going to bring manufacturing back here, not in a significant manner. You can force it to take place. You can, do subsidies and tariffs and national security reasons, and you can say, here, you manufacture semiconductors and you manufacture paper masks and you manufacture all this stuff, but there's no way that they're going to do it with profit. You can't do it here in the United States. You can make stuff anywhere else in the world cheaper than you can here in the United States, and unless you sever the supply chain, they're going to do it cheaper. And there's no way that you can warehouse stuff here in the United States and make it cheaper than a just-in-time delivery. Manufacturing in the United States disappeared a long time ago, and it's not coming back. I mean, it's just an unfortunate case, but if you follow Cantillon's essay, he explains it quite easily. I mean, once the new money starts pouring in and people have access to that money, they start diving into foreign luxuries. It's just the way it is. It's just, I mean, you can't stop it from taking place. Now, if people were to behave against like human nature and say, hey, I have worked really damn hard for all this and I am not going to enjoy it. I mean, if you can find the American, society to take on that sort of attitude, then okay, I would say, okay, we might have a way that we can reverse this. But it isn't going to happen. People earn a bunch of money and then they're going to want to enjoy it. There's no way that they won't want to. Like, it just won't happen. So as the people who have first access to this money start diving into luxuries, and as foreign luxuries, you drive out ever increasing amounts of domestic manufacturing and you start importing ever increasing amounts of foreign production. And that's going to continue until the entire system collapses, which is when the new money stops coming in. And right now, the new money comes in by the selling of U.S. treasuries to the entire world. So the U.S. used to be a manufacturing powerhouse where we produced more and lent more to the entire world. Now we consume more and borrow more than anybody in the history of the world. There's no reversing this. You're not bringing, even if you brought the manufacturing back, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be significant. And it's not going to work in a way that can be like a real free market profitable company. It's going to be loaded down with subsidies and tariffs and all kinds of stuff to try and keep this company of manufacturing in the United States. It's just the situation we're in where we can't do it anymore. Like, I don't know what it is that we would have to do in order to fix it other than go into incredibly hardship and work, like not consume, live like poor ass broke people and earn an incredible amount of money. Like, that's what would have to do to reverse it. And it isn't going to happen like that. What would you do with a decent amount of cash in hand right now, saved up the same way as daily pocket change in a jar for a decade? What would you do with a decent amount of money? All right. I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not a financial advisor. I have been broke most of my entire life, and it's only been within the last few years that I feel like I've actually had something. Like, it's only been in the last few years that I could actually pay a power bill at will, right? Like, at any time. Never have I ever been an investor or a financial guy or anything else like that. If I had a bunch of money right now, what I would do is I would hold on to it. I would wait for the Federal Reserve to pivot. I would look at the 5-year, 30-year spread on the Treasury, and when you see that start to widen in a significant way, I would dump it all into what you feel personally is going to be a profitable company. I have chose beer and cigarettes. I don't smoke and I don't drink, but I do know a little bit about addiction. So that's the thing that I've like invested in as far as stocks, and it's not even that much. I also put my money into Bitcoin and I put my money into silver. Like those are the places, but those are savings. They're not investments. They're speculations. That's all they are. And even with the speculation into Bitcoin, I don't really plan on selling it for anything. I just wanted to be in the game. So me personally, that's what I would do. Like I would hold on to that money until I saw the spread on the 5-year, 30-year really start to widen, then I would dump it into the stock market. Um, a lot of people might disagree with that, but that's what I would do with it. Now, on the flip side of that, I'm also looking at rental properties. So right now, I would sit on cash and wait for the opportunity to get into real estate. Now, everybody that I have pretty much met as far as wealthy people, like all the guys down at the Rebel Capitalist and all the stuff, I mean, some of them made it doing other things, but for the most part, almost all of them did it in real estate. Almost all of them made their money in real estate. Like, I don't know why people would want to fight that. Like, that's where they make their money. So, learn the best you can. That's the only thing you can do. I mean, you got to make decisions for yourself. If you're sitting on YouTube waiting to get the answers and what it is that you need to grow rich, you're probably never going to find it. You probably never find it on YouTube. But what you can do is get information from it and start making decisions for yourself on what it is that you feel it is the most appropriate thing to do. Everyone will use crypto in 30 years. I would not be surprised by that. I would not be surprised if everybody is using some sort of form of digital currency in order to do transactions in 30 years. I would agree with that. Now, which cryptocurrency, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't call that out yet. All right. I saw copper and brass, aluminum. There will always be a need for these metals. Or you save copper, brass. Yes, for sure. Any metal. Actually, it doesn't matter what it is. Any metal is something that is going to be valuable going into the future. It doesn't matter. Obviously, there's some metal that's going to be a little bit higher quality and, be easier to, say, sell, into the future. But all metal, I think, is going to have value to it. All right. What was the currency prior to the U.S. dollar? It was silver. Silver and bank scripts and stuff. Like, precious metals have pretty much always been the go-to for money. I mean, even there's really nothing else out there that can be used as money. Because really what you need is something that is durable, something that's recognizable, it doesn't deteriorate, rare, useful. Like you have to have like a bunch of certain characteristics in order for it to fit the bill as being money. And there's very few things out there that quite do it as well as gold and silver can. I mean, almost nothing. So that's really where the currency, that's really where money is. Everything after that was some sort of form of guarantee back to gold and silver, whether it was a banknote or IOU of some sort or whatever. But that's what it was used, was gold and silver, and then promissory notes of some sort. Good advice, thanks. What should we expect if the dollar gets depegged from oil? What can we do to prepare for this? I heard gold will double, but many people can't afford gold. Thanks, Carman. Well, post-poop, what is that? Post-poop zoomies? Okay, great name. First of all, I don't think that the dollar is going to get depegged from oil. Not and still exist. Like, I think the dollar will always be pegged to oil, or oil, however you want to say it, will be priced in dollars. Even though you got countries and all, situations in which that oil is being priced in other currencies and stuff. the majority of the oil around the world is sold in dollars. It's priced in dollars, and it's probably not going to change anytime soon. In order for it to not be the dollar, you would have to have another currency that was willing to take on the status of being the world reserve currency. And that is very difficult to do because there's a couple of things that the United States is doing to have the world reserve currency that other nations just simply cannot do, or may not be willing to do, or just not in position to do it at this time. And now the number one thing is that you have to be able to provide the world with a safe and liquid asset like the US Treasury. And this is really like the part that I just don't think a lot of people are trying to understand as far as like the dollar losing the world reserve currency status, because there's no other nation that can provide a safe and liquid asset like the US Treasury is. I mean, if it was gold, that would be one thing. Like gold can be used, but it's not gold, it's US Treasuries, right? So US Treasuries are the safe and liquid asset that needs to be provided to the world. And in order to do that, you have to have a country that is willing to go into deep enough debt to provide the world with that safe and liquid asset like the US Treasuries. The United States is doing it, but no other nation, I think, would be willing to do it like we are. I mean, and it isn't going to happen right away. It's going to take a long time for that to occur in order for a nation to provide that much safe and liquid asset for people to use. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, then you have to provide the dollars for the world to use. And now, how do you inject this money into the world other than just buying their stuff? So you have to buy their stuff, you give them the dollars, they use the dollars for the rest of the world to use as far as the world reserve currency. But in order to get that dollar out to the rest of the world, you buy their stuff. So you'd have to have a nation that would be willing to go into deficit trade like the United States is doing as well. Those are two characteristics that are probably not going to change anytime soon. And I can't think of a single nation that's willing to step up and do that. All right, so the dollar's not going to lose its world reserve currency status. This is not going to happen. Now, not right away. Like, give it time. Yes, it will. Something will eventually take its place. But I can't pinpoint and say, hey, it's going to be gold, or it's going to be something out of the BRICS nations, or it's going to be, the yuan or something like that. I can't pick that out yet because it's not presenting itself in a way that would be, yes, this is going to do it. Digital currency would have no other value but what the government puts on it. So maybe universal basic income. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, digital currency, let me read that again. Digital currency would have no other value but what the government puts on it. So maybe universal basic income. I mean, I don't think so. What does the government put a value on the dollar, or is the dollar demand from around the world put the value on it? Right? I mean, is it the government says, okay, I'm going to create a situation in which the dollar has less value and now everybody's working for $3 a day. Like, I don't think like the government does anything about that. I think the demand for the dollar around the world is what gives it the price, Let's see here. Is it possible the dollar could be destroyed faster than people think? Debt destruction. Like if people all of a sudden started paying off debt or writing debt off, then that would destroy the dollar pretty quickly. Now, I guess it depends on which way you're talking about dollar destruction. Dollar destruction in purchasing value, or dollar destruction in physical dollars leaving the system. Right? Because that's dollar destruction too, if you think about it. Like a lot of people think dollar destruction, they think purchasing power, like the loss of the dollar's purchasing power, which is actually dollar creation, not dollar destruction. Dollar destruction is when they take dollar out of the currency and makes the dollar stronger. That's dollar destruction. You can buy gold miners. Yeah, metals are perfect for money, but with age, we are moving to the new industrial age. CNT is making it losing its luster. Euros are more value than US dollars. No. Okay, euros are close. All right, I would agree. Now, you take your euros and you will be able to use them on a limited basis for world reserve currency, about, what is it, somewhere between 10 and 15% of the world reserve currency uses euros, and like 65% of the world uses dollars. So, okay, let's say the euro did do 6 times as much as far as world reserve currency status, or world reserve currency changes, transactions. What would that environment look like? Like, what would have to be taking place in the eurozone for that to occur? Right? They would be importing a lot more than they export. Right? Not fun. They would be going deeper into debt, right? Which is going over pretty well. Does any of that, like, they have to take on the conditions that the United States is doing. Does that sound something that Euro is going to be, totally on board with? It, maybe it is. I don't know. But that's what would have to happen, right? So keep an eye out for it, I guess, All right, let's cruise back to the bottom here. So many. How long have we been out here? An hour and 10, 169 of you, 93 likes. Nice, got 37 in super chats. You guys are always so generous with the super chats. You can't tell you how much I appreciate that, especially considering that Google's kind of hitting me right now. Jerome is going to flip the dollar and the euro with his next speech. I don't, Jerome doesn't do anything. I hope you understand that. Jerome is just a spokesperson. He doesn't do nothing. Like the FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee, they're the ones who make the decision on the monetary policy. Jerome Powell is nothing more than a mouth. That's it. He doesn't make the decisions, So, I mean, I guess his speech might do something, but it's not his speech. It's just his words for the FOMC. Hey, thank you very much, Michael, for the $4.99. Very cool. Can you explain what you meant by 5-year and 30-year Treasury spread? Yeah, okay, so that's a good question. I got this from Alan Greenspan when they asked him. It was just like, what do you think about the 2-year, 10-year inversion for the recession? He says, hey, I think that's a great indicator for a recession. But what he likes to follow is the spread between the 5-year and 30-year treasuries. He says when you look at the 5-year, 30-year treasuries and you see that gap, the spread between the two begin to widen, that's corporate management's willingness to invest. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that was supposed to have meant, but I figure if corporate management is willing to invest, then I should probably be too. Right? And so that's what I'm following. When I watched the 5-year, 30-year invert, it inverted first before the 2-year, 10-year, and I called that out. I was like, hey, bang, check this out. The 5-year, 30-year just inverted. This is Alan Greenspan, not a recession indicator, but I guess coming out of the recession indicator, like the recession is over. And I said, check it out. It just inverted. It was before the 2-year, 10-year did. And I called that stuff out. We all like, hey, that's pretty cool. And then it was like a week or two later that the 2-year, 10-year inverted, and everybody was just like, hey, look, inverted yield curve. And I'm like, yo, we were talking about it already. So that's what I'm kind of getting at on that. Like, I couldn't give you any more deeper, understanding of why that's going to work, why it's the 5-year and 30-year that does it. I mean, there's somebody actually who did explain it in the comments one time who I thought did a pretty good job, but to be honest with you, I went back to look for the comment. I couldn't find it. I can't remember what he had said. But anyway, that's, whatever. Alan Greenspan said it, so I'm going to follow that, and whether or not I use it at the time, I'm just going to keep an eye on that. And if everything says, hey, man, now's the time and that 5-year, 30-year is starting to spread, might want to jump in. I mean, that's what I'm going to do. All right. Inflation in energy costs. Okay, so what about oil, right? Isn't oil like the number one energy out there? And it's down like, what, 50% of its all-time high? $150 a barrel. That was set back in like, what was it, 2005 or something? It was like a long time ago. Input costs that go into inflation, right? Wages, energy, transportation, these type of things. They're a lot more, what do they use? The word sticky? Like they don't just fluctuate. Like lumber prices, it moved because it was the supply and demand issue, not anything else. People wanted to say, oh no, all these input costs going into it. I'm like, no, that's not what's going on here. But energy costs that go into inflation, that's a lot more as far as a stickier thing. What I said about as far as the energy causing inflation, I looked at oil and people had asked about that. What is the high oil prices going to do to inflation? And I said, what it's going to do is that the high oil prices are going to have an initial impact going into the economy. But what it's going to do is it's going to slow the economy down because less people, when the oil is expensive, less people buy it. If you have less people buying it, then that's less people driving, less people producing, less people doing all kinds of stuff, right? I mean, it's just showing that there is less activity taking place when the purchasing of oil comes down because of its elevated price. If that comes down, then eventually that slowdown of driving and manufacturing and purchasing will eventually find its way into the economy. So high oil prices, I looked at that and said, that's going to slow the economy down. It's people were like, oh, that's going to cause inflation to go up. And I'm like, it's going to cause the economy to slow down. And if the economy slows down, that will eventually start causing the inflation to slow down as well. So high oil prices, in my opinion, was a deflationary thing. Even though that's very difficult to try and wrap your head around it in that fashion, because high oil prices is input costs, right? Which is higher inflation. All right. All nonsense. Nobody knows the future. No, absolutely nobody knows the future. By the way, there are layers everywhere, not just large corporations. Yeah, but you don't see the layoffs of like 4 people from, a business somewhere. You don't see that. You're not going to see those ever. Like you only see the headlines when it's thousands of people, from a major corporation. It makes sense. Hey, thank you. Yeah, a lot of my theories and stuff like that, they have like if this continues kind of thought, like if you put like, a lot of people, high oil prices means high energy prices means higher inflation. Well, yeah, give it a little bit more time and what will happen from that, I mean, so you can say these things and be accurate about them, but then you can continue it on. If this continues like that, if it continues like this, just like anything out there right now, you're going to find that food prices are going to go incredibly high over the next couple of years. And the main reason is look at all the investment that is going into agricultural land. Think about how many people are borrowing money at high interest rates to take that borrowed money to buy agriculture and then transfer the payments from the food sell back into those higher interest rates. Who ends up paying for it? The consumer, right? The people who are buying the food. So the higher interest rates are eventually going to find themselves into the food prices. Now, this is the problem. When the food prices get incredibly elevated and are so extremely high, even more investment goes into it. And then an overproduction takes place. And then you have a crash in food prices. The next thing you know, you got subsidies from the government out there trying to protect the farmer, and they're paying them to destroy crops, right? This is how this stuff ends up happening. Bankruptcies and, commercial farmers going out of business, and you end up with like Great Depression type things. That's how I look at things. Like I don't say like oil prices go up, it's going to be an input cost, and that's that. I don't end it there. I mean, you continue on down the line, And the same thing, even if we do go into this major depression where, all these food production goes, all these corporations who are in food production go bankrupt, well, then that just leaves the opportunity for people to get into farming and start making money again. I mean, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Now, I don't envy those who are going to suffer through it. I mean, because it's going to be quite bad. But if you can recognize these things as they come, then, you can somewhat prepare for it. All right. There was lots of money to be made with oil going up and down like it did. Just have to know how to trade it. That's incredibly right. I mean, understanding how to be a day trader or just a stock trader in general, I mean, you can make an insane amount of money doing that. I mean, and having the experience in it is really where it's like the most helpful. Like people who just jump into the real estate game when the houses just kept ticking up, thinking I'm the smartest person in the world. I understand real estate. I know exactly how this game is. And then all of a sudden you run into a normal market where you have houses sitting on the market for months and people are saying, oh man, look how terrible the market is. I mean, no, houses used to sit on the market for months, even years, I mean, that was normal. Like being sold in a week or less was not normal, and people got very used to that and thinking that it was normal. All right. I wish. Why, Dad? Why? Okay. Let's see here. The difference between diesel and jet fuel is very small. When the military moves, the price of diesel will go up. What percent change do you think we are headed to a lost decade? 10 years, 1929 depression taking place? No. No, I don't see anything like that. What I see is like I see some serious pain coming to the people as the Federal Reserve continues to lift their interest rates or keep the interest rates elevated. That pain to the people will start clearing out a lot of bad debt, right? There's going to be a lot of bankruptcies, a lot of failures, a lot of like just bad times for the people. It's going to continue on farther than what anybody was anticipating because the Fed is going for the 2% average inflation over time. At some point in that future, we are going to find where the Federal Reserve is going to try and stimulate again. But for the most part, they are going to have a reason to do it. And that's really where I try to find like, what is it that could possibly be taking place at the time that would get the Federal Reserve to reverse course? And then what is it that they are going to make that reversal look like? Is it going to be like just traditional Fed funds dropping? I mean, they're almost to the 5% now. They may have the ammo to just treat it like a traditional like Federal Reserve policy tool of just dropping, the Fed funds rate. I honestly think it's going to be moving more into like a central bank digital currency. How far out and what that looks like, I don't know. But I don't think it's going to be like the Great Depression type of era because really then they didn't have the ability to just do money injections. They had gold and silver for money, and like the Federal Reserve did exist at the time, but it wasn't like the money printer go burr acceptance like it is today. So I don't know. I just don't think we're going to have quite the same thing. I think like with the capabilities of central bank digital currencies and stuff like that, I just don't know if we're going to really go into like a depression type era like we had experienced here in the United States back in like 1929 or whatever. I don't think it's going to happen like that. However, the inequality based off of inequality, the inequality will definitely grow. I mean, you saw it happen big time during the pandemic. I mean, the rich got incredibly rich during that. The poor barely got anything as far as wage growth goes. So the separation between the rich and the poor is only going to grow ever more prevalent. It was something that when I was doing the research into the population thing and how a higher standard of living lowers the population growth. And I was thinking about, being on the right side of the wedge, and we ain't there. It ain't like, to get on the right side of the wedge is so like out of touch for like the working class people that I just don't know if there's any possibility for it to happen. If you could figure it out in a way of like being the capitalist, rental incomes, stock market, stuff like that. If you could have some really good business or something like that, you might be able to, kind of emulate something of being on the right side of the wedge. But the right side of the wedge, these people who have the superpower, they're so far separated from us. It's like you have the people and then you have the inhabitants. And unfortunately, we're just inhabitants. That's all we are. And I mean, the faster we accept that, the easier it is to combat the problems of being just an inhabitant is, right? Because I find myself like every day when I read this stuff realizing that the powers that be that created this system had done it in order to lock us into a slavery system. Like that's really what it is. It's modern day slavery. And you're not going to be one of the slave owners. You're not. Like, if there's just no way you can get yourself in a position in which that you're not nearly the slave that all the rest of us are, but there's no way that you'll ever be the slave owner. Like those guys they're permanently there, and unless the entire world just burns up one day, they're not going to relinquish that power. We get it into a cashless society, digital currencies, and it's guaranteed they'll have it forever. And it's sad. It really is. But, like I said, the faster that you can accept that, then the better you can combat the problems that you realize are there. And mainly being that debt-based slave system that we have. I mean, there's really nothing you can do to get out of it. All right, middle class is disintegrating. Yeah. What would you do at age 34 knowing what you do? Sales, trades, what do you think of selling life insurance? Um, at 34 years old, I would still figure out what it is that I could do to have to try and create a passive income if you could. I think that's probably one of the best ways to leverage your time is to find passive income. I think that's really just for any age. I don't think you have to be 34 for that. If you don't have like any kind of skill sets already, like you don't know how to build a house, or you're not already got a degree in some kind of profession or something like that, I really don't know how else you're going to make a lot of money unless you do it in sales. Like you selling, even if it's insurance, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is you're selling. Selling is by far the easiest way for the average person with no knowledge, no skills, no anything to be able to make a lot of money. Especially if you got commission sales, you can make a lot of money. So getting good at sales and finding a commission-based job, that's really where I think an individual can make a lot of money and do pretty well for themselves. Starting your own business, a successful one. I mean, it's hard to like say, I'm going to start a successful business. I mean, it doesn't work quite like that. You have to start a business and then make it successful. And I've watched a lot of people try to start businesses and fail, like a lot of them. And if you are like me and you see those people do it, you see them go through a lot of pain, a lot of suffering as they like fork out money trying to keep their business going, only to find that it just doesn't make it. And that's tough. That's a tough thing to go through. But the companies or the people who do stick it out with their business and are able to make a fairly successful business at it, well, you look at them and you say, man, how lucky are you, that you have this business. But nobody ever says, man, well, I mean, some people do, but hardly anybody ever comes and says, man, you suffered a lot to have that business. Congratulations, man, you did well. Right? That doesn't, I mean, it happens sometimes, people who recognize it, but for the most part, people look at somebody who's very successful at their business and say, man, you're real lucky to do that, to have that in your life, and never say, yeah, you went through a lot of punishment to get there. Did I get another super chat? I did, from Amir. Thank you very much for the 1999. That is very cool of you. Thanks for answering the last question. Yeah, you bet, man. You bet. And thank you very much for that 1999. It's very supportive of the channel. Like I said, guys, it's like Google kind of hit me not too long ago. Not to like, it's not like I'm terribly concerned about it or something like that. But it was kind of a bummer, and, to see like, the ad revenue get cut, to see like, a lot of the algorithms spreading the video out to new viewers, that got cut quite a bit. So it's, it is a little like, discouraging, I guess. But then when I come out here and do these live streams, you guys are all so supportive and so awesome of hanging out here on the channel that it's just like, I don't care about Google, Amazon is low overhead way to try your hand at business. Yeah, like Amazon sales, you can do even the filled by Amazon, like figure out a product that you can sell on Amazon. You send a pallet like of stuff to Amazon, they package it up and ship it all out and do all the other stuff, and you get a commission off of it. All you have to do is just figure out the product and get it to Amazon, and they take care of the business after that. I mean, that's pretty cool. Like, you don't really have to do much. You just sit at your computer and make this thing happen. It does take a little bit of investment to make it happen, so there is that. But yeah, I mean, filled by Amazon is a great way to go, if you can find the right product anyway. Oh, here we go. Ben Affleck for the $4.99. Thank you so much. The World Economic Forum, I guess that's International Bank Settlements, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, all call for 2% holding of digital assets by 2025. 6T market cap would price BTC at 200K. Any thoughts? Yeah, I saw where they are going to allow Bitcoin to be held in reserves, which I thought was like incredible to think about. But yeah, I mean, here you can have like cryptocurrencies being held by the banks in a legitimate fashion. I don't know where that's going to send cryptocurrencies to. I couldn't tell you what it's going to send Bitcoin to. 200,000 on Bitcoin seems very reasonable to me. A couple million on Bitcoin seems reasonable to me. There's only 21 million coins ever to be produced from Bitcoin. I think about how many have, that's not even like, that's not how many are in existence. That's how many are going to be produced in the history of Bitcoin, no matter how you look at it. And so I think about how many have already been lost and how many are in hiding, how many are just like, there's not that much Bitcoin out there. Like there really just isn't. At 21 million coins that'll ever be existed, that does not leave a whole lot to go around. So if you can get even just one Bitcoin, that is so rare. I mean, it's such a rare item to have, even though it's like a digital asset and anybody can have it. You know, to me, like, I'd say 200,000 seems low, you know? Okay. Successful people fail all the time. They just learn from it and move forward. That's, you know, and that's exactly right. It was something that it was funny because when I was doing this channel, somebody actually mentioned it to me. I can't remember who it was. But the channel was doing, it was just starting to take off and doing well, and I was just really surprised by it. I'm like, wow, I mean, oh my gosh, all these people are like subscribing, and I'm getting all these really great comments, and you know, people are asking me to do interviews on their shows and stuff, and it was just like really taking off. And I remember somebody came to me at one point and they said, hey, you're going to get discouraged at some point. There's going to be something happens. There's going to be something that's going to take place in which that you feel that you're failing, or that you're going to fail, or that it's just like you're going to give up or something like that. That is a test. That is a test to see if you are really committed to doing this business, to doing these videos, to doing the whole thing. And it's funny because I thought about it, and it did happen to me. Like, you know, there was a couple of moments there where, like, you know, my personal life was conflicting with the videos, and like, you know, it was just like there was this issue that came up, and I'm thinking I might have to give up YouTube for a while. Like, it really came up, you know, and so I did actually quit making videos for a short time. And then, you know, it was only for a few weeks, and then I went back to it again. But I realized then, it was just like, man, this happens to just about everybody. Like, I don't think I've ever talked to anybody who has had a successful business that said, yeah, I started this business and every single day just got better and better and better and better and better till today. Like, I don't know anybody who ever said that. Almost everybody said there was a moment in which I almost failed. In fact, I was failing. Almost everybody makes this statement. It's like you start a business, it starts doing well, and then you have to almost anticipate, okay, the failure's about ready to come, and I need to work through this failure, and it's going to happen. Like, you don't even know why. It's like it's almost as if the universe is doing it to you on purpose, just to make sure that this is truly what you want to do, like what you're committing yourself to, because it'll test you in this fashion. Everybody says the same thing. And if you can get through that test, generally, what you will find on the other side of it is lessons learned, you know, skills that you didn't have before, all kinds of things that, you know, provide you with the business that is going to be successful because you went through that failure of it. It's amazing. Like, I don't even know quite how to explain it, but almost everybody says this. They say the same thing. Like, everybody does. All right. Let's see here. All right, I love that. Okay, they will let you own petrol powered vehicles, but you will be severely taxed into submitting. Well, I mean, that could be the case. I mean, you know, they tax the hell out of my little Toyota Corolla. It'd still probably be cheaper than buying an EV, you know, so. All right. Can you keep up is the question. Can you keep up is the question. No, you burn out. You know, that was something that somebody else asked me at one point too. It was just like, you know, doing the YouTube videos. I'm trying to do like a play. I'm trying to, do all kinds of like stuff. Like, the rebel capitalist is coming down, like get my day job. I gotta, like, all these things are just constantly coming down, and I'm taking on more. And somebody comes to me and it's just like, dude, you do this and this and this and this, and I'm like, yeah, and I call bingo, yeah, and I got a day, yeah, and I got a family, yeah, and I got all this stuff. And they're like, aren't you afraid you're gonna burn out? And I'm like, yeah, of course I'm afraid I'm gonna burn out. I mean, well, yeah, of course. And they're like, what, you're just gonna go until you do? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I am going to burn out. I am going to go as hard as I can to figure out what it is that I can do before I burn out. Like, I'm going to push it that far. And the dude was looking at me like, you're serious? And I'm like, yes, I am that serious. I will push myself until I burn out. What can I get done before I can't do anymore? Before it finally breaks me? And sometimes it does. Like, you just get to a point, it's just like, it's too much. I can't take it anymore. But then you learn your limits, right? And then the next time when you get to that limit, it's like, I've been here before. I can go past this. This ain't that bad. And you just keep pushing yourself further and further. So anybody who's afraid of burnout is a wuss, right? You're a wussy. You're not going to make it because you're afraid that you're going to burn out. So therefore, you'll never achieve anything really monumental in your life. Don't be afraid of burnout. Embrace that. Burn out. Go burn out. Hey, right on, crypto. Sorry, man. I can't pronounce all the crypto king tree. Anyway, thank you for the 500. That's really cool. What is that? What do you think about Hex? Is it paying over 30% APY for more than 3 years now? 100% uptime, flawless operation, hexagons in the house, boom. Well, I need to learn a little bit more about Hex. I didn't realize it had such a 30%. Wow, that's incredible. All right. That's why having a job is easier than having a business security. Hey, that's right. I have a day job. You know why? Because it pays the bills. You know what my day job will never do? Provide me with any kind of life other than the life that I have, paying the bills. That's it. That's the only thing that a day job will ever do. They could pay me twice as much money, it still would only pay the bills, right? That's the only thing that a job will ever do. And so if you ever want anything beyond what you have in your life, you have to do something beyond your job. Like, it's just all there is to it. Like, I see people complaining all the time. Well, if they paid more, then we would all have a better life or something like that. And I just laugh my ass off every time I hear that. It was just like, no, you won't. No, you won't. There has never been a time in history that anybody has worked just a regular old job and had a successful, like, I mean, there might have been one or two people out there, but nobody does that, right? I mean, you got a day job, you work 9 to 5, your life sucks. That's just all there is to it, right? I mean, you can make it better. You personally might be a decent, have good energy and happy and enjoy your life and stuff like that. But as far as having, like, all the cars and all the, traveling and all the other stuff in your life that just comes, pretty much like it's no expense to it or something. You don't get that from a 9 to 5 job. You never will. Never in the history of time will you ever get that from there. So in order to have like a really decent life, you have to basically say, okay, I'm not going to blame my boss anymore for this. I blame myself for having a crappy job and then not doing anything with my life outside of the 8 hours that I do at my crappy job. So, and when you look at it like that, well, then now you can, actually become successful at something, Lady V, thank you so much for the $5. Did you already comment on what you think about the Bank of America ZELLE snafu? Curious on your thoughts. To be honest with you, I saw the headlines on it, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal, so I didn't really look into any of it. So I'm not sure exactly what the details of that story were. I should probably have read up a little bit more on that, so I'm sorry, I can't comment on that. George Gammon and Robert Kiyosaki are all well aware about Hex. Kiyosaki was one of the Hex podcast channels. Right on. Yeah, I've met Robert Kiyosaki a couple of times. And George Gammon. George Gammon's kind of like a buddy of mine, actually. All right. Exactly. The human body is so underrated. Yep, it really is. Bro, stop shilling Hex. It's like farting in polite company. Well, that's not very nice. All right. Hey, buddy. Hope you're doing well. All right. Wayne Smith, you just need the right cookbook. Problem is, job doesn't even pay bills anymore. Sure it does. You just got to find the right job, and you just can't have a whole lot of bills. Like, yeah, you got to have just your basic bills. Like people who have car payment or a nice car payment, got credit card payments, got student loan payments, got all these payments on there. Well, no, you're right. You're not going to have you can't have a day job. No, you got to you're going to have to do something far better than that because you got all this other stuff going on. Like if you just had a regular day job, then you can't have a new car. You can't have fancy things. You can't go out to eat. You can't do all that stuff, right? You got to just sit at home, and do nothing. All right, Ben Affleck, thank you for the $1.99. Have you thought about obtaining a obtaining brokerage license? Somebody else had mentioned that to me. There was a gentleman, he was really cool too. He was a really nice guy who called me up and he was just like, "Hey man, I want to sponsor the channel and I think that you should, start like I don't know exactly what it was that he was wanting me to start up, like maybe financial advisory or something like that. But I don't know if I can really do that kind of thing. But he was suggesting that I like get into like, making money off of the information more than just giving it away on YouTube or something. But I wasn't quite sure on taking that kind of like avenue. Like I like the idea of entertaining. Like I like the information and spreading information and putting out the stuff, but like I like the idea of entertaining. That's like if I could have been an actor in the movies, I think that would have been a great life for me. Um, that's what I enjoy about being out here on YouTube and doing stuff like this is because it's a lot of fun for me to interact with the audience and being able to put out information and be entertaining at the same time. That's like my ultimate, man. Like how can I beat that? So to try and pursue something else in my life that makes money, it's just like to me it's lesser than what I'm doing. Like this is like the top. This is it for me. This is what I live like eat feed on. But trying to make money, figuring out what's the next stock to buy or something like that, I don't know if I'd find a lot of pleasure in that. I might a couple of times as the money was rolling in, if I did it right, I might get addicted to it and say, hey, this is a great way to make money or something like that. But I mean, I don't have like a passion for that in me to say, man, I hope someday I'm a day trader or something like that. I don't know. Let's see, never talked about Hex, only Bitcoin. All right. Live within your means. That's exactly right. Below means. Find something someone else does for a lot of money and just work at the same thing. I don't think you can. Like, do the same thing that I did. Like, I don't even think, like, if I was to, before I started the channel, if I was to tell people, it's just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to start a YouTube channel talking about economics from an old Toyota car. Like, in between, like, on my lunch breaks and after work and stuff like that, and I'm going to build up a successful YouTube channel. You watch and see me. Or, here, you can do it too. You do it. Like, it doesn't work like that. You can't necessarily just look at somebody else and say, hey, I'm going to follow that exact same thing and do it that way. I mean, there is a lot of things that you can do. There are certain businesses that you can mimic exactly how they did it and be very successful at it. But there's other things. It really takes the individual and figuring out how it is that they were able to get there. And a lot of times if you try and just mimic what somebody else has done, it doesn't quite work the same way. You actually have to go through it and learn it yourself. All right. It's stupid to buy a new car ever. I totally agree. Like, I mean, I guess I would buy a new car someday, but I would have to have a lot of money. Like I would have to have a lot of money in order for me to justify buying a new car. I just can't do it. I mean, even when I get close to being able to do it, like I lose interest in spending the money on it. Like I've always had these like, oh man, it would be cool to have like whatever toy or something like that. And then you start saving up the money, you get closer to it, and then you're like, I don't know if I really want that thing anymore. I'd rather have the money or invest it into something else or buy some, have a bigger, better thing in mind. And that happens to me a lot. Like I really don't have a whole lot of material possessions. Like I have tools. Like that's like most of like my personal stuff that I have are tools. Like that's it. I don't really have anything else. Tools and clothing in this car. That's like my personal possessions. We have the house and the furniture and stuff, but that's like for the family, right? That's like the household stuff. I mean, me personally, I don't need anything. Like, I want a nice ribeye. That's what I need. Nice, well cooked ribeye in my life. Good view, decent music. That's what I need. That's the type of stuff that I need in my life. Everything else is just material. It doesn't really mean that much to me. Is the collapsing economy anything to be fearful of? Invest in land for security. I don't think a collapsing economy is something that you should be in fear of. Only because like living in fear will not give you the ability to make the right decisions. Living in fear is a very dangerous place to be. It puts you in a fight or flight mentality. It doesn't. It's a negative. And what ends up happening from it is you end up drawing in more negativity by believing and thinking in such passions. At least, I mean, it's not like you should be like, well, I'm just not going to believe that there's going to be a collapse. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Being in fear of the collapse is what I'm talking about. You can believe the collapse is coming and be accepting of that collapse, right? And say, okay, it's collapsing. I need to prepare for it. It's going to be very painful. It's going to be hurtful. There's going to be a lot of damage out there, but I'm going to be aware of these things. And I'm going to try and deal with it the best that I can and protect myself from, from whatever it is that I see happen to be coming. Like, if that's the attitude that you have, it's not going to be as painful for you. If you live in fear, then believe me, the pain will come and it will be very scary because that's what you're looking for. It's what you want and the world will provide it for you. All right. Thank you, Juan1 for the $4.99. Very cool of you. Thank you. All right. A tradesman that can sell will never go hungry. That's and the baked potato with your ribeye. Oh yeah, definitely a baked potato. Yeah. With all the stuff too, like lots of butter and sour cream and all the chives and all the stuff. Like I love, like just load it up, man. Yeah. All right. I'm just here for money injection. Yeah. You know, that would be great. Like, just hand us money all day long, every day. Like, no big deal, But you already saw what a small injection of money across the board did. You can see how the people just flipped out and the separation between the rich and the poor took place. Can you imagine what a steady stream of money coming in would do? Unless you had some sort of like intense government control, taxing the hell out of everybody who was like getting the money but not using it to live off of, but to make themselves richer. Like if you had some sort of like political environment that was like just taxing the hell out of those people, then you might be able to get it to work. But who the hell wants to live there? Like, why in the world would you want to try to be successful only to be punished in such fashions? Like, you wouldn't want to. Like, I mean, it would be like I have all these great ideas that I would want to be like super successful at, only to when I get there, I get punished for it. Is that like, I mean, who wants to do that? I mean, I understand there's lazy asses who want to set up a system that would do that, but it's going to collapse because there's not going to be anybody who you're going to be able to suck from, right? They're going to be like, no, I had a good idea. You ruined it because you're going to take it all from me, so I'm not doing it now. All right, it's my birthday. I had me a steak and big potato today. Well, good for you, Stacy. All right. I just want some peace and quiet. Lady V, that is so valuable. You wouldn't believe it. Peace and quiet. It's worth a lot. I just save it and invest discretionarily. I've seen too many people set themselves back by trusting other people with their hard-earned money. Yeah, that can happen, and that's one of the reasons why another reason why I had started this channel was so that I could figure out what it is that I needed to do with my money. And now I figured if I came out here and we talked about economics, we talked about what it is that, is taking place, that I would just naturally come up with the ideas of what it was that I was supposed to be doing with my money. You just intuitively just be making the right decisions. And I find myself kind of doing that. Although like I'm not putting my money towards something I want to, I'm seeing the opportunities that may be coming in the future. And right now, I feel like I need to be saving cash, which is something that I've been saying for quite some time. A lot of people argued with me on it, but there will come a moment here in the future where investing is going to really pay off. Going from cash into an asset. What asset that is, I don't know yet. Like, I am not sure where it is that needs to be. People ask me all the time, what is it that you're going to invest in? And to be honest, I just really want to invest in myself, to make me better, at what, me better as a human being for one, but then it's better at what I do. And, if I can invest in me and then make money off of like being on stage and talking or making videos or doing whatever, to me, that's like what I'm going to do. Like, I don't know how it is that you're supposed to do something like that, but that's what I want to do. That's what I'm looking towards, and that's what I feel is going to be most appropriate for me. Not necessarily houses or stocks or anything like that, but investing back into myself. All right. Hey, thank you very much, Ben Affleck, for the $4.99. It's very cool of you. I appreciate your information, content, and fire inside to preserve and succeed. Life will reward you for being a positive force. Well, thank you, Ben. I really appreciate that. I noticed another thing, like, because it made me second guess it with, like, it was right after the new year too, when Google, like, the YouTube algorithm or something's happening here. And like I said, I'm just gonna like basically just write this month off as like, just a Google fix or something. But staying positive, right? Being that positive person. And I noticed, like, I look back in some of my videos and I noticed a lot of them were opinionated and, predictive and angry and negative, and not necessarily being the person that I had originally started out to be as far as the YouTube channel goes. Like, I wanted to be the person who was informative and useful and, entertaining. That was kind of like the point of the channel when I started it, was to be in that kind of frame. And I saw myself, I drifted out of that, going into opinions and predictions and stuff. And I'm like, that's not the channel, bro. That's not, I mean, you can do a couple of videos like that, or you can incorporate some of that stuff. But to have a channel like that, that's not what you were doing, And so I had to realize that within myself and go back into the idea that you're going to be informative and useful videos and entertaining videos. That's like who you are, right? That's who you want to be. That's who you want the channel to be for, want the channel to be about. And it's helped, like, immediately, like, my ideas for videos started coming a little easier. And like, I noticed the reactions from the comments were a lot better. It was a little shift. That's all it took. Let me reconnect there. It was just my mindset going from like, hey, you're giving opinions and predictions, go back to being useful and informative. And it made a huge difference. And that's what I'm going to stick to. I mean, when I notice myself drifting back over to opinions and predictions, I'm going to be conscious of that and say, hey, go back, be aware of what you're saying, and go back into your information and usefulness. All right. If you're good at psychology is a tremendous help. Yeah. You will never go hungry if you are a contractor. Ooh, yeah, I don't know. There's been some feast or famine there. All right. Mini-Me died with $1 million, Dr. Evil. All right. A much-needed trade job is millwright. I was a millwright for 20 years. If you are willing to work, you can work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, if you will be rewarded for it. Sharks with freaking laser beams. It was funny because I always thought, okay, if I have an office, like a studio office thing where I'm doing my videos, I want a huge fish tank in the background, like a huge aquarium, like a big saltwater aquarium with a shark, right, up in that aquarium. And then I want a little helmet with a little laser beam attached to it, like hanging on the corner of the aquarium. I just thought that that would just be perfect. Like, you know, shark with freaking laser beams. You know? Intelligent and informative won't fly on YouTube. No, you're right. Clickbait and fear tactics sells. I understand that, but that's not what my channel is based off of. And if it doesn't succeed, so be it. Like, you know, I mean, I have to put a clickbaity title out there every once in a while just to get the attention and get some, gets the algorithm moving again. But for the most part, I'm not going to do that kind of thing. I'm going to try not to anymore. I want to stay informative and be useful and entertaining. That's it. Those are my three, you know. Train yourself to nourish the body only with prana and breath work and mind control, trusting the universe to guide on path, navigating the stars, and being familiar with the landscape. ISM, I think that is a lot deeper than what anybody is ever going to accept, right? I mean, they're going to look at that comment and have no idea what the hell you just said, but I believe what you have said is very true. Are you a Christian, UE? I am not religious. I'm just not religious. And I don't really talk about a whole lot of religion or my, you know, what it is that I have faith in or believe in. I'm not going to deny anything, you know, as far as that goes. And I'm not one to, I'm also not one that falls into blind faith. So, you know, take it for what it is. All right. Do you have a Discord channel to alert us when you're going to stream? No, but people have asked me to start a Discord channel. So, I just, again, because I do so much stuff, like anything that I have, like people were like, man, you should be on Twitter more. Well, I tried to be on Twitter, but I can't keep up with it. So, like, I can only do so much stuff and be active in so many things. And I just, like, there's just some things, like, I can't be everywhere all at once. You know, if I didn't have a day job, I might be doing some stuff like that. And if I didn't have a day job, I could probably make a hell of a lot more money doing stuff like this. But, yeah, I don't know. I've thought about it. So, as far as the Discord goes, I'll nourish my body with steaks. Yeah. After a certain point, the best investment you can make is to raise your children as warriors and set them up for a worthy legacy. Yeah. Yeah. Do you believe in charity? Yes, I do. I do believe in charity. The drama is unavoidable when you are into economics. Let it come. Don't add to your drama to the channel. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that's just the thing. Like, a lot of people ask me, well, what does it need to be done? Do you agree with the Fed? Do you disagree with the Fed? What is it the Fed needs to do to fix the problem? You know, and I'm like, there ain't no fixing. There is no, like, once you understand that there is no fixing the problem, it's not a fixing thing. It's just like, it's just the condition that we happen to be in. That's it. That's all there is to it. And if you can understand the condition that you're in, well, then you can make decisions that are more appropriate for that. Like, you know, like I've said it before, you know, well, you can't see it now, but there's a river right outside my window here, right? There's the Columbia River. And if you're out on the boat, right, and you're operating your boat, you're not going to operate your boat the same as like that freighter over there is operating that boat. Like, it's not even the same thing anymore. I mean, yeah, sure, it's a boat, it's out on the water, you're on the same body of water, but you are not behaving the same way, not even remotely close, right? So the decisions that you make on your boat are going to be much different from the decisions that that dude makes on it. Now, even if you're on a boat and it's sinking, right, and you're bailing this boat out, trying to figure out how you're going to get it back to shore, when you're on the boat and it's sinking, you don't point at the person who pulled the cork out of the bottom of the boat or whatever, or punched a hole in the bottom of the boat, and you say, hey man, this is your fault that we're all dying here, right? You know, that's, like, what good is that going to do? Like, you can go ahead and do it all day long, but what is it going to serve? What purpose does that serve? Nothing. Absolutely nothing does that help, right? Bailing the boat out does help. And if everybody teams up, bails out the boat, gets the boat back to shore, and everybody lives, that's where you go and you chew the guy out for punching a hole in the bottom of the boat. But when you're out there in the middle of it, you don't complain about what the problem is. You just solve the problem, or you figure out what it is that the problem is and how to deal with that problem. Same thing about dealing with the Fed. Like, you don't say, hey man, this is the Fed's fault. Okay, fine, so be it. It is the Fed's fault. Are you gonna, like, now are you gonna sit here and still complain about it being the Fed's fault? Or are you gonna do something about it? That's the difference inside of it. Like, you recognize what the problems are out there. You know that there is no fixing it. You're not gonna vote for somebody who's gonna fix it, because that doesn't happen or ever will happen. So it's all about you. It's you. That's it. There is nobody else out there who's gonna come save the day. So the sooner you figure that out, and what plans you plan on doing, that doesn't count on a politician, that doesn't count on, somebody making a right decision, because they're not going to do it. There's no way that they're going to do it. And then once you figure that part out, now you can start making decisions for yourself. And if it's bad times, it just happens to be bad times. It's just not as easy as it once was, but it's not something that you feel negative about. It's just the condition in which it is. Eventually it'll pass, right? It's like complaining about it raining or something like that. It's just like, yeah, there's really nothing you can do about this, right? It's going to rain. It's not going to last forever. Eventually it will stop, right? So it's same thing, right? There's no point in complaining about it or feeling negative about it, because all that is just going to be more negative stuff that's going to come towards you. Wild lamb quarter is a spinach. Huh. All right. It's big step leaving your job. It really is. You remember, like, I don't know if you caught the video the interview I did with the girl Kimmy, and I just loved her story. She was telling me about how she just, like, broke free from the grind one day. And I'm like, whoa, how'd you do it? And she said, I did it with my camera. Like, she picked up a camera, she started doing photography, found it to be a lot of fun, had a niche that was different from the other photographers out there, found that niche to be really good for the higher end, photography out there. She wasn't trained in, she did take some classes so that she could be a better photographer, but she wasn't like a professional photographer when she started this business. And now she's on her own. She says she only works like 4 months out of the year, 3 or 4 months out of the year, and the rest of the time she takes off. I heard this story and I'm like, I was just blown away. But in the middle of the story, I had her tell me, I was like, tell me about the day that you quit your job. Tell me how you felt. And like, not so much like the day, but the day before you quit your job. How nervous you were. How like not only just nervous, but second guessing yourself, second guessing on whether or not you were going to be able to perform the business that you are intending on doing, and being able to still make a living at it and being able to excel. Like, how scared were you? And Kimmy was saying she was just super scared of that day, to go into her job and say, I'm going to, I'm dropping the keys on the table. I'm done. I'm not coming back to work here ever again. And then to step out on your own, knowing that it's going to be you and just you in your efforts, and not some like clocking in, being there at 9 to 5 and not have to worry about anything else, just showing up. That all goes away, and now it's all on you. Now you've quit your job. How do you feel the very next day? The very next day after you quit your job, how do you feel? And she says she feels like $1 million, like the entire world is hers and that she's ready to take it on, right? Day before, nervous as hell. The very next day, excited as hell, right? What changed? Absolutely nothing. Just her perceptions on what was taking place at the time. Right? And this is it, man. This is like, anybody can get out, right? Anybody can, there's money flying everywhere all the time, right? You got to figure out what your niche is, what it is that's, that excites you, and what it is that's passionate about it, and, and go forth with that. Relying on other people isn't going to do it. You have to do it yourself. Follow up to the Discord channel. You'll get more views if you standardize the time you live stream. Okay, I'll definitely think about it. Are you Cato? Who's Cato? All right. Yeah, F the Fed. Yeah, I hear that. I welded for a while, but am in oil field now. But if I had to do it over, I would be an electrician, I think. Yeah, totally reasonable. I look back on different things. I enjoyed like I enjoyed framing houses. Like, I thought that was fun. Framing houses in the summertime was one of the most satisfying things I think I've ever done in my life, you know? But I like doing this. I like I like doing this, you know? I mean, if I could make like all the money if for my life that I would need just, you know, doing what I'm doing right now, this is good for me, you know? Um I would like to do bigger things, you know, but you know, like, I mean, what is it like? I mean, I think like, what would be like a better job, you know? And I'm like, I don't know, nothing, you know. Like, I mean, I like doing this, you know. So, I mean, there might be fun things. I like woodworking, so I mean, I guess it'd be kind of fun building furniture or something like that. But even that, like, I don't think it would be nearly as rewarding to me as doing what I'm doing here. Right. Oh, hold on. Thank you for the 4.99. Any option on how China will influence the economy as they get past shutting down and start producing? Yeah, this is going to be something that I thought was quite interesting. It's to see what it is that China is up to. You know, with the reopening of their economy and things ramping up quite fast, there is the possibility that the production that starts going into China starts demanding a lot of commodity, a lot of energy, and could, depending on how quickly and how fast they ramp it up and how much demand, you know, starts taking place from the world on what China is doing, I could see where they could really start influencing the commodity prices to go up. You know, if there's a lot of activity that starts coming into China, but you know, we're going to have to see that take place. I mean, that's kind of a speculative move right now. I'm still kind of curious on how much demand for China's stuff is going to be happening, and if they end up producing into a nowhere, like nobody buys their shit, you know? All right. Let's see here. John Velasquez, thank you very much for the 4.99. Klaus Schwab says we won't be owning boats anyway, and be happy about it. You know what? I don't trust Schwab. I don't trust what he says. I don't believe what he says. And I'm not going to live in fear of that dude. And if he wants to come and try and take anything from me, well, I don't really have much to take. So I don't know. I mean, it's just like I already own nothing. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't think I'm not in fear of that dude. I have no fear of that dude. I have no fear of the World Economic Forum coming down and taking everything that I have and making me eat bugs. I must be the only one who is not scared of that, because I have like zero fear of that. You know, none. It's like my level of concern. I mean, I is like about 2 inches off the floor. None. Like, I have no concern over that. All right. Mark Norman, 9.99. Thank you so much, man, for the super chat. And, you know, and it's not like I'm saying that he's like I'm not trying to say that that's not that is some sort of idle threat. I'm not trying to say that that's what that is. I mean, I think it's a legitimate threat. The only problem is that it doesn't work for me. I'm not threatened by it. Like, somebody says you're gonna own nothing and eat bugs, and I'm like, you know what? I already own nothing, dude. Like, and I don't eat bugs. I can go. I know how to eat. Like, I can go eat. Like, I'm not worried about that part. So when somebody says you own nothing, you're gonna eat bugs, I don't believe that. I simply just don't believe it, you know, because one, I already don't own anything, and then I'm not gonna eat bugs, you know. I mean, I might eat bugs. I might, you know, dip a bug in some chocolate. I'll eat that, you know. All right, Mark, did you send me another 9? Oh no, that was just the same one. Okay, cool. Really appreciate that, man. You guys are so supportive of the channel, man. I can't thank you guys enough. Like, you know, I mean, like I said, this is what I want to do. Like, I can't think of anything else. You know? You'll eat the bug. I won't. You'll eat the bug. Right? Bugs are extremely healthy and have lots of protein. Okay, well, let's fry some up. Like, I don't mind, like, hey, if you found a way to, like, saute up some crickets, like in a stir fry or something, I'm down. I'll eat that stuff, right? Like, I'm not scared to eat bugs. Like, I'll eat bugs. I'm not going to be forced to eat bugs is what the difference is, right? If I'm going to eat bugs, it's going to be by my choice, you know? No, they're not. Okay, you first. I wish I could get into YouTube, but don't have the mojo. Well, Lady V, I think you can. I think anybody can, right? And I think, like, my wife has proven that with her channel. She dishes every day, right? Does the dishes, sets her camera up, points it down to the sink, does the dishes, uploads the video. No difference in it. It's just the dishes. There's no talking. I mean, sometimes you hear talking in the background or something like that. But that's it. She puts out a video. She has like, I don't know, 50 subscribers. She puts out a video. She gets anywhere from 50 to 100 views. Right? You know, the reason why she does is simply because it's consistent. She puts the videos out every day, every other day on a consistent basis. If you are consistent on YouTube, just regular, it doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't even have to be, it could be just a few times a week. As long as it's consistently done, you can build a YouTube channel too. Be informative, be honest, be don't try to be don't try to make videos that are going to make it. Make videos that you like. Make videos that make the best videos you can. If you try to make videos that everybody wants to see, it won't work, right? You have to make videos that you like the ones that that you want to make, and it'll work. Like I know it will. Like, it may not be like super successful where you have hundreds of thousands of subscribers and you're making $20,000 a month off of it or some crazy thing, but anybody can start a YouTube channel. And I tell you, the very first time that I was able to monetize the channel, my whole goal was to make $100. That was it. I just wanted to make $100 because that was the threshold that you needed to achieve before Google would send you any money. So that was my entire goal, was $100. Right? And I remember when I had a video make $10. It was my very first video that I had ever had that made $10, and I was just so blown away. I'm like, oh my gosh, I made a video that earned $10. Can you imagine if I was able to do that every day? I could make like $300 a month. I could have like a car payment almost. I mean, to me, that was so incredible. Like, this was during a time when I had nothing going on in my life. Like, I was less than broke. I was so bad in debt and had no way of making, didn't know what it was I was going to do to make any more money or something. And I made that $10 on that video, and I was just so blown away by it. And then I was like able to like consistently make $10 on, like, that was just that one time, and then it went down. I make like $1 or something off a video, and that went on for quite a few weeks. But then pretty soon I could consistently make $10 off of a video, and it took a long time to get there. And I just remember, like, at the time, like when this started happening more consistently, I'm like, this is going to change my life. This is going to change everything about what I have going on if I can do this. And it did. It changed everything about what I had going on. I cannot thank Google enough. I cannot thank YouTube enough. Like, even during this month of algorithm adjustments or whatever it is that they're doing, I don't get mad. I don't get mad at them because they have benefited my life so much. Like, I cannot thank Google enough, and all the people who have subscribed to the channel and have stuck it out with me and all this. You do not have any idea on how much of a difference you have made for me. I mean, I don't know where I would be without it. Like, that's the scary part. Like, that scares me more than the World Economic Forum or anybody else out there. What scares me more is where I would be right now if it wasn't for you, the viewers, and the platform here on YouTube. I just don't know where I'd be. All right. It's a cool feeling, isn't it? Yeah, it is. When you find your calling. Well, yeah. What color Camaro from Chevy do you want? I really like I like the red and the blue one. Both of those are pretty cool. But to be honest, I really like the white. That white Camaro looks really good, you know. And I'm not big into white vehicles, but for some reason, the white Camaro does look really cool, you know. So, we all love you, man. Well, thank you. You're doing a great job. Well, I appreciate it, you know. And I'm gonna, like I said, when I kind of realized what I was doing with the channel, and then said, okay, man, get out of the opinions and predictions and get back into information and usefulness, it felt better too. Like, it just, like, all of a sudden, like, oh man, the channel just, like, oh, it has like this feeling of, like, you know, inspiration again coming to it. So it was really what the channel needed. I needed to go through that to put those videos out there like that, to know that's not the way that I want to do it, right? And so it was kind of like an experience that had to happen. Wow, really? On Just Dishes, yeah, and dishes every day. Go check it out. You know, that's all she does. It's just, and the reason why she did is because it was almost like a bet. Like, I think she was almost going to want to try and prove me wrong, that it wouldn't work, even though she knew that it was going to work. But yeah, she set it all up, and you know, at first there was no views, you know, but then eventually, boom, she started getting views, and now she gets consistent followers on her channel. You know, I told her, it was just like, you got, like, I forget, she told me she has like 1,500, 2,000 views a month, and I'm like, you know, you might actually be able to get a sponsorship. You might be able to get, like, you know, one of the dish soap companies to send you some free dish soap if you just put it in the video. And so, I don't know, maybe that's the next step, is to get free stuff from it. Have you had any mentors in your life? No, not any long-term mentors, no. I do have to say, like, in high school, I really, really liked my shop teacher, Mr. Warner. I still see him today. He comes into the store every once in a while, and he tells me all the time, he says, just call me by my first name. I can't. I can't. I'm gonna call you Mr. Warner for the rest of my life, and because that's just, like, I had so much respect and really enjoyed being in his classes because of the woodworking projects that we did. Like, I wasn't much into school. Like, doing academics was not something I was into. It was just really surprising, considering I have a channel on economics, but I was not much into, like, studying books and stuff like that. Reading, no way. Like, even today, I don't read. You know, I still, people ask me, what economic books have you read? None. I've read two things. I've read The Creature from Jekyll Island and Cantillon's Essay on Economic Theory. And I carry Cantillon's essay around with me, right? Because that's how much I really enjoy that particular one. But, shop classes were definitely it for me, and so Mr. Warner would have been like my mentor if I had one, but really it was just for a few hours a day, and it was only for a couple of years. So no, I've never really had a mentor in my life. All right, Corvette Z06 is what you want, trust me. Well, I tell you what, post poop, oh, it is post poop zoomies, I totally agree with you. I would drive a Corvette Z06 just the same. All right. Got to get tinted windows on your future Camaro soon, hopefully, Simon. Well, man, the day I do get that Camaro, those windows will be black. I guarantee you that. Life experience is what we appreciate most on our deathbed. Yeah. All right. If all the Uneducated Economist subscribers sent $1 to him in the mail, he could buy a nice Camaro in whatever color he wanted. Yeah, well, I really appreciate that, Wayne Smith. And you guys, I mean, I have gotten money in the mail, and I tell you what, guys, I saved it. I saved it all. I haven't spent any of that. I have every piece of silver. I have every letter. I have every little knickknack or something that anybody has ever sent me. I have it all. There's a couple of items that I think got misplaced or lost in the move, but I have every piece of mail that anybody has ever sent me. In fact, I have 2 pieces of mail here that I actually forgot about. And I feel bad about it because it was Christmas, and I don't know how it ended up, like, stuck in a spot right here in my glove box. I don't even know how I got in there. I don't even remember opening it up and putting it in there. But I have 2 pieces of mail that I'm going to open up tomorrow morning for the video for you guys. And I had to apologize to the individuals who sent me those, because I'm sure you're wondering what happened with that. I don't know. Something happened and I stuck it away and I just forgot about it. But yeah, a lot of people have been very generous in supporting the channel, both with, the silver and gold and the money and, everything that you guys have done. And, when it came to buying the house, if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been in the house. Like, it took every dime I had, including the only thing that I didn't spend was the actual cash that you had sent me in the mail. But all the PayPal tips that you had ever sent me, all the Google, everything, like everything I had, it took to get into that house. And if you hadn't given me those, and I hadn't saved a lot of it too, like, because I was using the PayPal to take the family out to eat, but during that time I was trying to save up and I wasn't taking the family out to eat or doing anything. So I just saved all that money. And if I hadn't done it, if I hadn't saved every dime, I wouldn't have gotten into the house. And if you hadn't sent me the money, it wouldn't have been there. So you guys, I think you've done, I don't know if you realize how much you have actually done for me. Like, a lot. A lot. I just got another super chat up there. What was that one? All right. There it is. Mark Norman, thank you very much for the $1.99. Have you listened to the Survival podcast? I have, but I haven't listened to a lot of it or lately. But yes, I have in the past. I am glad my mom didn't me Milton. All right. You aren't wrong, but think resale, especially, who's he talking? Oh, talking to somebody else legit. Okay. My real name is Batman. It's idiotic to get the Hellcat when you can get an SRT8 and slap on the supercharger for 10K extra in mods. Quarter of the price of the Hellcat or Demon. You guys know your cars a lot better than I do. I just think they look cool. All right. I'm glad that you were able to get the house. Yeah, and looking back, I am too. I said it a while ago. At one point, like, I don't, maybe in a little bit I still kind of feel it, but definitely, right before the house, like about the year before the house, before I bought it, so like, 2 years ago, I really felt, it's kind of funny because somebody asked me if I believe in religion too, but anyway, I really felt like something else had grabbed a hold of me and was like pushing me and like, here you go, like, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on here, And I really felt like it was like, there you go, man, we're shoving you this way, and you don't really have much choice because we're doing this, right? And so, like, I'm flying on YouTube and the thing's taking off. I'm putting out lumber videos that are getting 100,000 views and stuff, and I'm like, what in the world, and get invited to go to Rebel Capitalist, and it's just getting like, everything is just like coming down at once, and it's just advancing, and people are asking me to do interviews, and it's just more and more and more and more, and it's just like getting overwhelming, and I'm like, what in the hell? And then all of a sudden, boom, now you got to get out of your house, you got to buy a house, and I'm like, what the hell? What is going on here, man? Why is this channel taking off? Why am I having to leave? Why is all this, like, I'm like, all these things that I have to make decisions on that I was not planning on doing, and all of a sudden they're just like showing up in my life. And then boom, I buy the house, I do Rebel Capitalist, and boom, it's all over. Like, it just stops. And I'm like, what the hell happened? It's like I just got let go. It's just like, boom. And I'm feeling really lost, and I'm like, what in the world just happened here, And so I'm like, I'm back from the Rebel Capitalists, and I'm trying to figure things out. I'm trying to figure out what the next move is, and I'm kind of losing it, like, I'm not holding it together very well during this, and I'm putting out the videos, and I'm trying to understand what it is I'm supposed to do next, And And that's when I realized it was just like that like getting that house was the goal. You didn't know it. Like it wasn't part of your forefront plan, but it was definitely part of the subconscious, and it put it there. It like everything about it. My wife said she wanted a quiet house out in the country that was back kind of like in the neighborhood that we had. Like, she wanted that quiet house out in the country. My boy wanted a big front yard. Like all the things that everybody wanted, like it showed up. It just all of a sudden there it was. Like it took everything out of me. It scared the hell out of me. I didn't even want it. Like I'm not going for this. But then it was all there. It was like all of a sudden, yeah. And then I was like, go and go figure it out. Now, okay, there you got your stuff, man. And so that's what happened to me. I didn't even know. Like it almost, like I said, it almost felt like I wasn't even in control of it anymore. It was like something else was doing this. All right, where are we at here? Lord Humongous. The Humongous rules the wasteland. Yeah. All right, Lord Humongous up in the house. Ribeyes. Yeah, I love ribeyes. Lord gets man and soul from TST. Damn, it's been a min. I don't know. Where are lumber prices going? Lumber prices are going up from here, Lord Humongous. Lumber prices are going to be jutting up. I don't know how far, how fast, but they are not. We are definitely at the bottom when it comes to the retail of lumber. Like, I would not hesitate to go out there and get the lumber that you need. I mean, in fact, if the longer you wait, the more expensive it's going to get from here, at least from what I can tell. Now, as far as like lumber taking that really big move, like a spike going up in price, I would have to wait for the home builders. Once you see the home builders sentiment start to increase into the positive, like right now it's still like super negative. Like, well, I don't know. Like I think on the home builders sentiment index it's something like 35. Anything below 50 is negative, so it's like incredibly negative. But if that gets closer to the 50 mark or even starts heading drastically towards it, I would assume that the inventory levels from what I have experienced out there and what I'm reading is very depleted. And if there is any kind of demand pickup, you're going to see the prices shoot up because there's just not going to be enough inventory out there to supply. At least that's the opinion that I have of it right now. We are going to see car market dump before houses this time. Yeah, and I agree with that. And simply because like, I know a lot of people like will argue differently about this. They'll say like you can live in a car, so you can, as long as you'll make your car payment because you can live in your car or something like that, but you may not be able to make the house payment. So holding onto your car is more important than holding onto the house. I don't see it that way. Like I drive cheap cars, so I'm not like a car payment. No, I don't think so. Like I'm not interested in car payments. And so like I have a different mindset towards that. I don't know what reality would actually say. I think about like how expensive vehicles were that people were buying and that just ridiculous like priced. When you see cars get cheaper out there, like a lot of people will be willing to like default on their car loan before, in my opinion, before they would default on their house loan. So if that be the case, then I could see where the car market would collapse before the housing market would. Have you played Among Us? I have not. My boys love that, though. They talk about it all the time. All right. My old handle was Saudi Goodman. Or Soul Goodman, sorry. Soul Goodman and me and Lord go way back, but I haven't been on as much as I used to. I hope all is well, Lord Humongous. Right on. All right, Lady V, are you really a lady? Have you played Among Us? All right. I built the first one of 1,300 in lumber in October. Ooh. People will give up car before houses. I agree. I think they will. How much time do I have out here? What time? Oh, 28% power. Plenty of power. All right. 2.5 hours I've been out here. Crazy. 152, 151 likes. I love it. I would ask you guys to go hit that like button. Only one of you needs to hit it at this point, right? We'll have just as many likes as we have viewers. Now go hit that like button. I'll be out here for a little bit longer. I don't know, maybe another 15, 20 minutes. And we'll see if we can get a few more people up here in the algorithm. All right. Wow, your voice just got slow. I'm live again. Yeah, sorry. My voice is starting to I can feel my voice starting to fade a little bit, so I'm going to slow it down a little bit. Uneducated Economist rules. Well, thank you, Lord Humongous. I mean, Lord Humongous has been with the channel for a very long time. I mean, I think it was back when I first started talking with Mike Martins that Lord Humongous showed up on the channel and has been here really pretty much ever since. So thank you, Lord, for being here. You are blessed. Yeah, you know, systems reality team. I really agree with that. I am, and I don't know what it is that happened in my life or what it is that I deserve to have something like this going on in my life, but it is very unique, and I believe me, I don't take it for granted. I really appreciate it because, you know, if it was something that other people had, like if I like, you know, if I could see other people around me, some of my friends or family or anybody else who, you know, who could do something like, you know, or just have something like this in their life, then I wouldn't think so much, you know, I wouldn't think about it so much. But it's quite unique, and a lot of times, and I just because I don't know how to quite describe it any other way, I just feel it's unfair, like that I can do that, I have it, and that other people don't, you know. And it's a weird feeling. It's not like, not a guilty feeling. It's like I don't feel guilty by any means, but I definitely feels like it doesn't feel fair that I you know, that I have it, but not so much that I would give it up, you know, because I love it so much. But it definitely it doesn't seem right that I look out there and I see some people that I know who are excellent people. I mean, they're so nice, and they are so like kind to the world, and they are just dealt crap all the time. Like all the time. They are so undeserving of this crap that they get dealt all the time, and yet they just get it dished to them. And I think to myself, I was just like, man, why is that like that for you? You know, it's like it's nothing you're doing. It just happens to be that way, and it, you know, that doesn't seem fair, right? You know? Some can handle their virginity and some can't. What are you guys talking about? Can I pay my Visa card with my MasterCard? Love getting dealt lemons. I turn them into lemonade. I can see where Lord would do that. All right. Good evening, Glenn. Central counterparty is a big subject in the FDIC video. I've been looking into it. It's a big deal. Huh. You think credit cards will be defaulted as the rates keep kicking in? Yeah, I would imagine that we're probably going to see defaults in all kinds of in all kinds of debt markets, whether it's credit card, car loans, even house loans or whatever. I mean, you're gonna find defaults in everything out there, as the pain is going to continue to trickle in. I mean, it's just going to be, it's like the clearing out of the dead undergrowth, right? So a wildfire, like a forest fire, although as devastating as it seems, is actually really beneficial to the forest. It clears out all that dead undergrowth. It nourishes the ground again. It gives, like, you know, room for plants to, like, you know, more viable, healthy plants to get a start in. It's scary to see it during the time, but the afterwards is quite beneficial. So, you know, that's kind of what we're seeing now, is like, you know, the malinvestment, getting, like, shedding of all this malinvestment that's out there, this, you know, this deteriorating debt that doesn't benefit anybody. Get rid of all that stuff, and then we can, you know, start again with some you know, with some good viable business and entrepreneurship. You know, not saying it's a good thing that the Federal Reserve is doing it, because it's going to be quite painful, but I'm just saying it's part of this economic system that needs to take place. It's just part of the cycle of it, you know, like forest fires. It just needs to happen at some point, you know. It's only because you seized the opportunity. Perception is reality. That is so true. perception is the reality. Whatever, a lot of people don't realize that. You want, you know, you want something different in your life, just do it. Just make it different. Just make that change and do it and live that different, right? Just start living it. Like, I hate the term "fake it till you make it," like, because to me, I don't like being a fake. I don't want to fake anything. I want to be authentic and real with everything it is, and even if it's like, no matter what it is, I just want to be real and authentic with it. And so, faking it doesn't sound appealing to me. But there's something to be said about faking it till you make it, is to just, if you have a change in your life that you really want, just start doing it. Just do it. Start being the change that you want. And as uncomfortable and as scary as it feels, and here's another thing, as mad as people will get at you for doing it, stick to it. Stick to it and be the change. And the longer you stick to it, it won't be fake anymore. It will be who you are. Just be it. Just be the change you want to see. Hey, right on. Another super chat from Robert Shields Jr. Thank you so much for the $1.99. Love the real interest rate explanation today. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that too. Appreciate the $1.99. Yeah, the real interest rate, because that one was it was really difficult for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. And so when I made it just as simply as that, like, a lot of people try to, like, when they hear, well, the interest rate is this, but the real interest rate is that. Well, what is that supposed to mean? I mean, either you have an interest rate or you have the real interest rate. What's the difference between the two? So to easily explain that, because like I said, I think Robert's, accurate in saying that it was a really good explanation, is that if you can imagine an investor who is going to get an investment of 2%, right? If you have an inflation expectation that you're going to have a 1% inflation, your 2% interest that you were going to get on your investment drops to 1%, right? What you actually get after inflation. If you can lower the inflation expectation, the real interest rate rises to 2%, what the investor thinks that they're going to get for their investment after the inflation. So if you can lower the inflation expectation, you can raise the real interest rates. And same thing, if you can raise the inflation expectation, you can lower the real interest rates. And that's really where I think a lot of people have misunderstood what it was that the government and Fed and everybody else was trying to do by pushing that narrative out there of a higher inflation expectation. At the same time, they punched out a lot of stimulus, because if you can raise the inflation expectation, you lower the real interest rate. Borrow money today at not today because it's 6%, but back in the day, last year, you borrow money at 3% interest, buy an expensive item, and then be able to pay back in cheaper inflated dollars at a 3% interest than to lose your purchasing power at 7% interest into the future. So basically, you spend the money today at 3% or at a 3% interest, than to hold on to that money and lose it to a 7% interest in the future. So if you can raise the inflation expectation, then you can lower the real interest rate. Lower the inflation expectation, you raise the real interest rate. So thank you for the $1.99. I really appreciate that. And that is, I thought that was a pretty good explanation of real interest rates as well. Because a lot of times you go and you look at like some other people explain it, it gets really complicated and stuff. And I don't think it needs to be explained that way. I think it could be done very easily. All right, fake it till you make it. It has worked wonders for me. I look at it more like a wing it. Yeah. Well, and that's just the thing. Like, okay, I'm not a speaker. I'm not a public speaker, right? I've never been up on stage. I went down to the Rebel Capitalist and I told myself, yes, you are. You are somebody who gets up on stage and you are somebody who speaks to large audiences. That's what you do. And it was just like, I mean, I've spoke to audience before. I mean, I've done bingo, right? I mean, I've talked to a group of 50 people, what's the difference? 50 people, 700, what difference does it make? 800? So that's what I went down there. I mean, I've never done it before, but I went down there. I was this public speaker, and that's what I did. And I pulled it off. Like, I mean, and now that's what I want to do. Like, I feel like I could do that on a regular basis if I could find the time and the effort, the logistics of doing it. All right, Simon, this is hard to answer, but gold and silver are starting to tick higher. Is it time for it to break out or a little, or do you think it will pull back again? I know this is hard to predict. Thanks. Okay. No, I don't think it's going to pull back. I think that we're going to probably see it continue to gain ground from here. And really, I think the biggest problem is that most people are very scared around the world of what the dollar is going to do. What's going to happen in the United States? Is the United States going to go into recession? I mean, there's so much uncertainty, right? That's my favorite word for the last year has been uncertainty. That you don't know where people are going to run to hide. Now, this is the thing. Think about what people are going to do to protect themselves if all hell breaks loose. Wars, weather, governments, doesn't matter. I mean, just hell's going to break loose. How do you protect yourself? What do you do with your money? Now, most nations, most people around the world, if they had an issue with their own sovereign debt or their own markets or something like that, they would run to the United States. They would buy into the United States treasuries or the United States stock market or something, because that was the safe haven, especially the US treasuries, right? The most safe liquid asset in the entire world. Well, right now we have a lot of fear over the dollar, especially here in the United States. There's a lot of fear over the dollar. But the fear outside of the United States is quite extreme as well, with all the, sanctionings and different things that were taking place. People, like even nations outside the dollar or outside the United States are kind of pissed at the dollar, and they don't really want it. So now you have to think, where is it that people would run? Where are they going to run to try and protect themselves? If they're scared about their own sovereign nation, their markets, if they're worried about the US treasuries going down, or, some kind of issues with the United States government falling apart or going into recession, or some kind of scary issue taking place that doesn't give them the safe haven status, where are you going to go? There is no place to go to except for gold and silver, Bitcoin on a lesser extent. So if you see this uncertainty continue to rise, which we are, and it's going to, they're going to find a place to go. And where do you go? You're probably going to end up going into gold and silver, right? I mean, at least that's kind of how I see it as far as all the safe haven places to go. You might take your chances and go into stocks or something, or doing some other investment. But if you're looking for the safe haven, I don't know if it's going to be the U.S. Treasuries. I think it's the U.S. Treasuries right now, just because I think it's the cleanest shirt in the laundry pile or whatever it is. But, as far as overall safe havens, gold and silver, that's it. That's the only place. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see it continue to tick up from here. All right, you can get a ton, literally, of free copper if you scrap motor windings from various waste sources. You can get free copper just by, okay. Every pre-81 penny has almost 3 cents worth of copper in it. So just switch all your money into pre-81 copper pennies, and you'll have 3 times as much money in copper as you do in money in face value. So that's pretty cool. Pretty easy way of going about it. Same thing with nickels. Nickels are more than their face value too. Here's something that I told somebody a while back, and I love using this one too, this little theory. Say you're scared of the dollar. You're scared of stocks. You're scared of everything out there. You are 100% in fear. Transfer all your money into nickels, literally 5-cent nickels, right? U.S. currency. It has a face value of 5 cents, and it has a weight value of 6 cents. Okay? So, all your money is in nickels. Let the government fail. Let the monetary system fail. Let whatever be. It doesn't matter, right? You have all your wealth protected inside a nickel, the weight value of the metal, and you have the face value of the nickel. Even if I am absolutely nuts and I am just babbling out like worthlessness, right? Even any of that, you spend the stuff at face value, you've lost nothing. There is no way that you could possibly lose if you just transfer all your money into 5-cent nickels. You just can't lose. There's no way. Impossible. Right? Trust me, you can melt the pennies. Yeah, you can melt pennies. Is it assayer's guides from the past? All right. The silver grains that add up to $1 in silver. Was it 300? Was it 331? No, wait a minute. Is it 331 grains? No, that's like 31 ounces. Hold on. How many grains is it in an ounce? I can't remember. Somebody Google it real quick and put it in the comments. It's like 3 something, right? 371.25. That's it. Thank you, Lord Humongous. Said 331. It's 371. All right. All right. If the monetary system fails, how would the nickel be worth the face value? It's not. It's worth the weight value, right? But if the monetary system doesn't fail, then you have the face value. You see where I'm getting at? Like, there's no way you can lose. If the government completely fails, you got the weight value of the nickel, right? If the entire system collapses, you got the weight value of the nickel. If the thing carries on and nothing happens and everything's kumbaya, you spend the nickels at face value. You've lost nothing, right? The only thing you may lose is a little bit of purchasing power, but you cannot lose your wealth, period, if you buy nickels. Silver, no, not silver nickels, just nickels. All right. How much silver to retire or acquire multiple businesses by 2030? Oh, who knows? All right. Who are you going to sell your melted down weight in nickel? It won't matter who you're going to sell it to. There's going to be a demand for it because it's nickel. It's a commodity. It's like anything else out there. Somebody out there is going to find a use for it, right? That's all there is. That's bottom line. Nickel has use, right? And if you have it, then you got to figure out a way to sell it. Now, I'm not trying to say it's going to be like super easy and everybody's going to have like these nickel exchanges on the corner of every street or something like that. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is take the physical item, look at it for what it is, look at the face value that it has and the weight value, and there's no lose. There's a no loss to that, you know? I'm not, and here's the thing, if anybody, I did actually find, like, I think it was either a video or an article or something, where a guy did, like, transfer, like, a lot of his wealth into nickels, and he had to move, like, all his wealth around with pallets. Like, he had a warehouse of nickels that he would just move his wealth around with these forklifts and stuff. And he literally did it that way. I mean, I think it was for that very reason, too, you know? All commodities are real barter economy money. Yeah. Would love to hear your thoughts on the Fed's next rate hike meeting. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that's my thoughts on a regular basis. I mean, I've been saying it quite a bit. The Federal Reserve is going to continue to keep interest rates elevated for a significant amount of time, even far past what all the economists and everybody else is going to say out there. When the interest rates come down, when the inflation rate comes down and hits that 2% target, everybody's going to be throwing their hands up in the air saying, okay, we did it, goal, Federal Reserve can now pivot, right? But they're not going to pivot. They're going to keep it elevated, and people are going to be like, yo, we're at the 2% target, right? You should be adjusting your interest rates, come back down, because that's what you have always done in the past. But they're not going to go for that this time. They're going to keep it elevated for a significant amount of time so they can get the 2% average inflation rate over time, which means that during times of incredibly hot economic activity, they are going to let inflation run extra hot, extra long for an extended period of time by keeping the interest rates unreasonably low. Right? And we heard them talk about it. We heard all the economists say this. And I was saying it at the time that they were going to do this. And then when the inflation runs up and they run the interest rates up, they were going to let interest rates run extra long, extra hard for an extended period of time, be extra high, to make up for the fact that the inflation had not maintained its 2% average over time. So when they keep these interest rates elevated, they are going for a 2% average over time, not a 2% target. They don't really care about the target anymore. They want a 2% average inflation over time. So that's when everybody's going to be like, the Fed is doing unnecessary damage to the economy by keeping these interest rates elevated. And you're going to hear that. You're going to hear it, right? And people are going to argue with me saying that I'm wrong about it, even though I made this claim a long time ago. that's what they're up to. That's what they're going to do. And that's how I feel, right? And time will tell if I'm right or wrong on that. Well, Juan, thank you very much for the $4.99. That's very cool of you. What's up with the zombie companies? Well, I mean, have you noticed that there is a lot of layoffs and a lot of shutdowns, a lot of bankruptcies? This is something that I had said a while back, right? I said once the Federal Reserve lifts the interest rates, that they are going to be knocking the heads off these zombie corporations. They want people to lose their jobs. They want wage growth to stop going up. Right, and the reason why wage growth kept going up is because all these available jobs were out there, not enough people to fill them. So in order to find the people, you have to increase the wages. Well, that's coming to an end. The wage growth is coming to a cap. It's not going to go up anymore. The separation between the rich and the poor is still going, so the rich are going to continue to get richer. But the labor, the working class people, they're not going to get any more of that. Right, so that's the unfortunate thing for the working class down there. But what's going to end up happening is that as those people are not going to continue to get the wage increase, right, that goes into it, they're not going to be spending into the economy, and then eventually the inflation is going to start coming down. This is the Fed's attempt, right? So hacking the heads off the zombie corporations is pretty much like a critical thing for the Federal Reserve to do in order to bring that wage growth down, right? To stop having as many jobs out there in the economy. Hack the heads off the zombies, get rid of them. All right, okay, guys, it is certainly getting late. What is it? 7:35. I got 20. We got 2 hours 40. Okay, I'll give another 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna bail out, go home, get something to eat. All right, what are your thoughts on the increased interest rates and the impact that will have on household spending in respect of inflation? Well, I think it's going to do exactly what everybody says it's going to do. The increase in interest rates, it's just, it's the access to money. I forget, All Nighter actually sent me a message earlier today, and he described it really well. The cost of money is basically what is going to drive the economy, right? How much does it cost to borrow this money? Because with this borrowed money, I can go buy a car, or I go buy a house, or I go on vacation, or I do whatever. The cost of this money is really where the economy is. So if the interest rates are high on the cost of this money, well, then most likely I'm not going to be getting as much of it, right? Because it costs so much. But if the cost of money is really cheap, the interest rates, right? Because the interest rates is the cost of money. Well, then I can acquire all this money for super cheap. I get to go and spend all that money into the economy. That's pretty much like Economics 101, Another 10 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to go 10 minutes and then we'll be done. That'll put us at 3 hours, which is a long time to be out here. But you guys just love hanging out with the UA. I don't get it, but I really appreciate it. I don't know how we can go for 3 hours and just keep going like this. But the comments, the questions, the statements, it's all good stuff for 3 hours straight. I don't get it, but it's awesome that we can do this, there was a time I was wondering, I was just like, man, how would I ever talk for 10 minutes? Here it is, I can go for 3 hours, Hi, UE, long time. Hey, what is it, Faisal? All right, a real issue in the CC debt versus savings rate. People are totally broke, and with 20% interest rates, where this heads. Bankrupt people. Yeah, it really does. It's getting cold in here. I want to turn my little jacket on. Heated jackets are awesome. All right. Well worth it. It was funny. The Milwaukee rep came by the store the other day, and I'm like, hey, bro, you see that jacket right over there? That thing is cool. I love it. It is an awesome thing, and I bet you it's gotten more than 100,000 views on YouTube. You ought to think about sponsoring the channel, and I never heard back from him. You know that? Holy moly, you're still alive. Yeah, right? I'm not for much longer. We're only going to go for about another 8 minutes. How many chickens do you have? Right now I have no chickens because the raccoons ate my birds last year. I had ducks last year, and raccoons, when I was in Miami, got into the coop and killed all my birds. So right now I was planning on doing chicken or ducks again, but I may do chickens. And really, I'm gonna start with 6 birds, and then bring the flock up to maybe 12, somewhere around 12 birds or so. Um, the reason is that you want to rotate your birds. So like the first year I might do 6, and then I might add another, 4 or 5, maybe 6 the next year. And then what you want to do is rotate through them. I mean, if you were here earlier in the video, we were talking about most chickens, they lay really good for about 2 years if you light them up. If you don't light them up, put a light, like a literal like light bulb in their coop. If you don't do that, then you'll get like 3 to 5 years of decent egg laying out of them. And then after that, you have to replenish the bird. There's only about 900 to 1,000 eggs in the bird, right? That's all they'll lay throughout their entire lifetime. So whether you get them out in, the first 2 or 3 years, or you get them in 5 years, that's all you'll ever get out of that bird. After that, they're just a bird. They're just going to be a pet, right? They may get an egg every once in a while, but you're not going to get a consistent layer. So you have to rotate through them. And what I basically mean by that is you cull out the old birds and you add fresh pullets, which is a hen that's under a year old is referred to as a pullet. So you add these pullets to your flock, and then you always have egg generation, always have a consistent eggs. So that's where I'm at, 6 to 12. What does that jacket run on? It runs on a little battery. It has a battery pack right here. This thing is actually the charger too, and then the battery is just it's one of the M12 batteries that goes with it. And so I carry it in the pocket. There is a little pouch in the back that you can slide the thing into, but I have a pair of gloves back there, so it doesn't really sit in the back of the pouch very well. But yeah, dude, they're so awesome too. They are so nice. They are very comfortable, man. And like, I bought my wife a heated vest, and she like literally lays around the house, like puts it on, like wears it like it's a heated blanket or something like that. Light them up. All right. A pet in the freezer? Oof. Yeah. I did like, usually the hens, like those old laying hens, they're not really the best eating birds. They're really, really, really tough. Like old boot kind of tough, right? Most people don't realize when they're the chickens that they eat at the store, like when you buy a chicken, like a roast, like, you buy a whole chicken from the store, that bird is literally 8 weeks old. Like from the time it hatched till the time they butchered it, 2 months. That's all it takes to raise one of those Cornish cross rocks. And they're not genetically modified, hormone injected, like a lot of stuff that people are saying. That's not the case. The Cornish cross rock is a hybrid bird. They developed it way back in like during the Depression era times, right? In fact, I think it was the World's Fair. They came up with this model chicken. They were like, hey, we want a bird to look like this, right? And the breeders of the world out there started combining their birds until they came up with this particular breed of bird, right? And it's referred to as a terminal breed. Like, they cannot possibly exist on their own. You have to have like human interaction, creating the birds, like hybriding the birds together to create the genetic bird that they need, that grows fast and has like the meaty breast and all the other stuff. But it's nothing that would ever exist in nature. It's just intense hybriding that has done it. And yeah, it's crazy to think. Yeah, those little, like, hatched out of an egg to 8-pound bird, 8 weeks. And when you raise these things, because you can order them and raise them yourself, the Cornish cross rocks, it is incredible to watch them grow. Like, you'll have these little, little peeping chicks, and they're just running around doing their thing. And like a month later, they're like these big birds. Like, they're not full on birds, but they're big. And if you raise, like, it's fun if you raise like some laying hens with them, because the laying hens are still these little tiny chicks. And then you got these big meat birds, these big Cornish cross rocks that are just huge in comparison. For the next 4 weeks, they eat and drink like crazy, and they, like, you could almost like physically watch them grow. That's how fast it happens. And in 4 weeks, you go from like a 1-pound bird to an 8-pound bird, and then it's over. And you have to butcher them because basically they won't stop growing. And eventually, like, it's even sad, as you're raising them, they will grow so fast that they'll literally pin themselves to the ground. Like they can't stand up. Their legs are not strong enough. They have heart issues. It's really kind of sad. So raising Cornish cross rocks basically means you will be butchering these birds no matter what, or they'll die. Hey, thank you very much, Radisson, for the $4.99. Very cool of you. Change you can believe in, said by Obama. Wish he educated as you did about nickels. George W. Bush was only president with a bachelor's of economics. Was a bachelor of economists, I say. I mean, the economy is not like a textbook thing. Like you can like open up the book, okay, economy, chapter 1. No. It doesn't work like that. I mean, it's all theory. It's all economic theory, right? And that's where I really dig Cantillon's essay on economic theory, because it is so old. If you can understand the economic theories from something 200 years ago and apply them to some of the things that are happening today, those economic powers that are the powers of like free market, the powers of government manipulation, the powers that go into it, they all affect the economy, but the economy acts independently, right? I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff out there. The economy still behaves. Right? You can make government disappear. You can take out particular, whatever. Take out particular currencies, add currencies. The economy is still acting, right? With or without you, whether or not you engage, whatever, it's still going on. So understanding like the economy, being aware of the economy, that's like it's almost like an art that you have to take on yourself, and understanding it is really more about like, how is it going to benefit you, and what is it that you need to make, the decisions that you need to make to be the best for what you can do. Understanding the economy, like somebody like George Gammon or Peter Schiff or one of these guys, they understand the economy in a much different fashion than somebody like I do. But then again, they're participating in the economy in a whole lot different way than I am. Like I'm like showing up 9 to 5. I'm entertaining. I'm doing, different things. Like I'm not actually out there investing like a lot of these other guys are doing. Like they're participating in the economy in a much different fashion. One day I will be like that, right? But the way I view the economy and the way they view the economy, not the same thing. It's not. I mean, we look at a lot of the same things. We have a lot of the same maybe ideas or perceptions that are happening out there, but the way we may see like the way things go from here could be very different from each other. Like they may think it goes this way and I might think it goes that way off of the things that we see and experience, because each one of us, we're all part of the economy. It's organic, and there is no rules to it. Anything can change at any given moment. And the more aware you are of the different theories and maybe the different events that are happening out there, it just adds more to your intuition. That's really what it comes down to. And then as you're just progressing through life, you're just naturally making the right decisions, because subconsciously you have all this information going on in the back of your head anyway. All right, guys, I'm going to take off. It's been so awesome hanging out with you for the 3 hours. 171 of you up in here in this chat, hanging out for 3 hours. It's just amazing how supportive you are of this channel, how much information we bring together, these conversations that we have, the agreements, the disagreements, the counter arguments, this is what it's about. This is how we do it. This is how we learn. And, the more we do it, the better we are for it. So thank you so much for being so supportive of the channel with all the super chats and awesome comments and the thumbs up and the encouragement and everything you do. I'm going to try and stick it out here for you guys as best as I can and bringing you the information when I come across it. All right. Thank you so much. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.